and good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, April 13th, 2023. So, with all this winning on their side, it's so crazy to see them all just absolutely batshit crazy. And then, of course, we have more leaking. And, of course, whenever there's a Washington Post article that's not behind a paywall, you can pretty much assume that's just they want to make sure that everyone sees the propaganda. So there's this person, this OG, posting in this Discord server apparently, and then this other person comes forward saying that they're behind the leak, which pretty much you can guarantee this is a leak from our own government, and this is their disclosure method. So they're not fooling anybody. Alrighty, let's get right into it, shall we? Thank you to PNW Sasquatch over there on the foxhole with the cookie. Much appreciated with the message getting this party started. Thank you as well to Richard Lyles with a can over there on the foxhole. Much appreciated, guys, for the early support. So, let's just jump right into the deep end, shall we?
It's espionage, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to defraud donors, and espionage. Trump stole a map. The map shows sensitive intelligence information. Trump took the map to Mar-a-Lago. Trump showed the map to, quote, aides and visitors. And we already know that ain't the only thing he stole, but it is enough. That is the dissemination of classified national intelligence, and that is espionage.
Gosh, send him a death.
18 U.S. Code 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. Those found... he's guilty. Guilty. Where's the gavel? Guilty. Guilty shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Or if it's really bad, 18 U.S. Code 794, gathering or delivering defense information to aid foreign government. Those found guilty shall be punished by imprisonment for any term of years or for life, unless the action directly concerned nuclear weaponry or other means of defense or retaliation against large-scale attack, war plans, communications intelligence, or major element of defense strategy, which shall be punishable by death.
Oh, my Lord.
And the special counsel, Jack...
I'm sorry, is Keith Olbermann threatening Donald Trump with death? I don't like this. That sounds a lot like what Trump was saying, that after he was arraigned, there would be threats of death and destruction. That maybe they just were wrong about who it was going to be coming from. They take it easy there, Keith.
Smith knows about the map Trump stole, and he is asking witnesses in front of the grand jury about the map Trump stole.
I'm sorry. How do you know what the grand jury is being presented with? I was informed that these are supposed to be secret and that any leaks of this is a felony. So how does Keith Olbermann know about what's going on in this secret grand jury? I don't know. Maybe we should have you be on trial, dude.
And along with the rest of this, as reported by the New York Times, one source says investigators have asked about Trump showing the map while on a plane. A second source says
Now, was that plane the Air Force One? I think that might be relevant.
Investigators believe he showed the map to at least one advisor after he left off.
You guys know that. You can't show anything to advisors. They can't advise you on stuff. What are you doing showing them stuff to look at?
A third source says he may have showed the map to a journalist working on a book. Fourth source, not for the Times story, but for the Washington Post, says investigators have asked about Trump showing maps and other materials to donors. And the Times zeroes in on the special counsel constructing a day-by-day, maybe hour-by-hour timeline of where this map was.
Wow.
And where Trump was. When he allegedly showed it to others. And this is in addition to the case we already know he's building about Trump directing a conspiracy to obstruct justice.
It's like it's total fiction. I don't. What else can you say? This is a delusional person that's probably inside of a padded room somewhere in a luxury suite in New York, overlooking, I guess, Central Park is what he's shot some of his videos before. But man,
by having his lawyers swear he had returned all the documents he stole when he hadn't. And almost simultaneously to the release of the Times story, there's one in the Washington Post that says Jack Smith has so much going on in D.C., he's got 2 grand juries working there, and one of them is hearing evidence about financial fraud. The entire Election Defense Fund and Save America PAC and every other scam Trump ran between the election and the day he left Washington in disgrace. Subpoenas in recent weeks, the Post writes, to Trump advisors and former campaign aides, Republican operatives, and other consultants involved in the 2020 presidential campaign, unquote. And there's already been some testimony. And they want all drafts of all fundraising memos. And, quote, one person with knowledge of prosecutors' inquiries said they appeared to be exploring whether people who approved the ads saying the election was stolen separately acknowledged their fundraising pitches were based on lies, unquote. And if that sounds familiar, it should. It is the basic premise of the Dominion voting system's $1,600,000,000 defamation suit against Fox. It is one thing to claim you won an election and there's a vast conspiracy to keep you out of office. It is quite another to claim you won an election when internally you admit you did not, and there is no conspiracy, but you want people to give you money to fight the conspiracy. That is fraud. And theoretically, though not practically, there could be a count of fraud for every donation Trump and his lackeys successfully solicited. And now as to the big question, as to when already. Quoting the Times, prosecutors have now interviewed nearly everyone who could offer insight in connection with the documents, according to one person briefed on the range of witnesses, unquote. I think the Times could not be more clear here if they had drawn you a map. So the classified kleptomania espionage case against the defendant seems ready to go. An obstruction case seems like a no-brainer. Where exactly Jack Smith is on January 6th is unclear. The new vein of material, the conspiracy to defraud donors, that just started weeks ago, and so the comment from the bench during the sentencing of January 6th defendant Robert Sanford on Tuesday by Judge Paul L. Friedman is even more fascinating today than it was yesterday. If you don't remember it, quote, there are still people who believe the election was rigged. There are still people who support Donald Trump, though not many showed up at the court in Manhattan. We'll see what happens here at this court when the Justice Department moves in a few months, I suspect.
Gotta trust the suspicions, right?
Whatever the timeline ahead of us, whoever is writing this script is clearly beginning to draw the threads of his plot together. The hilarious Tucker Carlson atonement interview of Trump Tuesday night, now running again and again on a loop on all of the state TV channels in Russia, is the perfect segue to the subject of the Fox Dominion trial in Delaware. Turns out it's not good to have lied when you're Trump, and it's also not good to have lied for Trump. They are not only now starting to pick the jury, the judge may delay things because he's already furious at Fox for possible misrepresentations to the court, as the judge Eric Davis phrased it yesterday. This is very serious, he said.
Yes, very serious. And I thought elections couldn't be rigged. I don't understand why they're so mad at Fox News and this whole Dominion issue. I was told that there would be no rigging of the elections. Let's see. Speaking of rigging things or corruption, actual shit, like the actual corruption, not bullshit corruption that Keith Olbermann's talking about in his weird fantasies where he's probably in a padded room masturbating himself to death. Here we go. Let's check this out. This is new.
A former Obama White House official says he wants to testify to a federal grand jury because he says he has information about then Vice President Joe Biden's role in his son Hunter's business. But he says the FBI has been ignoring him.
Former Obama stenographer Mike McCormick joins us now. Mike, thanks for being here. You say you are a witness to a crime. Walk us through why you say that.
Yes. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
So in April 2014, I was in Air Force Two with Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan. At the time, no one knew that Hunter Biden was already on the board of Burisma Holdings, the natural gas conglomerate from Ukraine. Joe Biden is directing Jake Sullivan in the front of the plane what to say to the press. My job as a stenographer on the plane is to record what the vice president or a senior administration official says to the press. So I'm sitting back there with a tape recorder. Jake Sullivan comes back, and somebody asks him about fracking. His answer is, well, we're bringing a lot of American assistance over for fracking. Burisma was the direct beneficiary of that fracking. And that's what I recorded, and that's in a White House transcript. In the transcript, you don't know who Jake Sullivan is. It's a senior administration official. I'm the witness that says Jake Sullivan is the guy who said it, and he should be investigated because at the time, Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma, and Joe Biden is bringing American taxpayer money to enrich that company and himself and his family.
Yeah, Mike, let me throw in a few dates here. Hunter joins the Burisma board April 18th, 2014. You have that conversation with Jake Sullivan April 21st, 2014, outlining how the U.S. would help Ukraine's gas industry with Joe Biden's help. Hunter's role not made public till May 12th, 2014. And then in December of that year, Congress approves $50 million to support Ukraine's energy sector. Ashley.
You know, Mike, my biggest question is, you said the FBI has been ignoring you. It's no secret right now that people don't have a lot of faith in the FBI. Would you tell them, and what did they say back to you?
Well, that's a great question, Ashley. I came across this story back in October. I published it in my Substack. My Substack is Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. I didn't hear much about it. In February, I went to the FBI and filed one of their tips on their website. If you do that and you're lying to them, you go to jail. I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth, and I'm not going to jail. Joe Biden is a criminal. He was conducting malfeasance in office to enrich his family. Jake Sullivan is a conspirator in that, and there's more Obama officials involved in it, I believe.
So you are willing to go under oath to state that you are certain that this was a kickback scheme that Joe Biden was orchestrating, correct?
Correct. There's a grand jury right now in Wilmington, Delaware. They've been seated for 3 years with a special prosecutor named David Weiss. If David Weiss can't have me in front of his grand jury explaining what I know as a witness, that's a fraudulent grand jury. It's a fraudulent use of the American judicial system to cover for Barack Obama and Joe Biden's crimes in office.
You know, with everything you've said, do you think by you testifying, this would change this narrative? And I mean, frankly, a lot of us have already, we have thought this for a long time. We've always said it's not necessarily Hunter Biden, it's Joe Biden's ties to his business dealings. So do you think by you testifying that it would change this story?
So if I testify in front of a grand jury, there are two things can happen. Because I have a little bit of experience with grand juries. I used to be a stenographer listening to grand juries. I used to do transcription for the Lewinsky grand juries. I go back that far with stenographers. Two things can happen. One, what I say is evidence. So my testimony would be evidence. But I can also point them to other witnesses they can call into. Because a grand jury is an investigative tool. And if I went in there, I would tell them to have Barack Obama called in as a witness because he's part of the conspiracy. He's an ex-president. He has to answer who was in charge of this, putting Joe Biden into this role. Did Barack Obama know about it? Because there's evidence I've seen and put in my Substack on April 16th, so 2 days before Hunter joins. Joe Biden is with Hunter in the West Wing. They have a meeting. And then later that day, in the evening, Joe Biden spends a day in the limousine, in the back of Barack Obama's limousine in Western Pennsylvania.
Mike, we reached out to the White House for a statement, but did not hear back. Something tells me we have not heard the end of your story. Keep us posted. Mike McCormick, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
And definitely stay safe, because that's especially when he said something went back to Lewinsky. I'm like, ooh, don't get Arkansided. Okay, so that's something that's breaking from yesterday. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't that? And that's almost like it's actual corruption, not the fake corruption that Overman is talking about. So there's a couple of these articles. But the general gist is that they're trying to launder the fact that these Discord posts were supposedly just someone that may have been in the service, and this is so that, like I said, this is pretty much, this is information laundering. It's cut and dried, cookie cutter. Especially when you have CIA's Washington Post not have an article behind a paywall. Yeah, it's an info op. All right, let's see. So here's what New York Times is saying of this person. It says, here's what we know about the leader of the online group where the secret documents were leaked. The leader of a small online gaming chat group where a trove of classified U.S. intelligence documents leaked over the past few months is a 21-year-old member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, according to interviews and documents reviewed by the New York Times. The National Guardsman, they're identifying here as Jack Texiera, oversaw a private online group called Thug Shaker Central, where about 20 to 30 people, mostly young men and teenagers, I'm surprised they didn't call them white supremacists, but that's probably coming. Let's see. Two U.S. officials confirmed that investigators want to talk to airmen about the leak of the government documents to the private online group. Yeah, I'm sure. Just want to talk to him. That's it. We just want to talk, son. Yeah. There. So whether or not he's a fall guy or what. This is interesting. Late, but... that's okay. Late can be good. Apparently, Jimmy Dore is understanding, hey, the conspiracy theorists are continuing to be right.
Resumes biolab programs in Ukraine. Now, this is from April 7th. Now, why is this funny? Because they said that you were a crazy white supremacist conspiracy theorist if you thought this.
And you were.
So this is from March of 2022 from Reuters. U.S. dismisses Russian claims of biowarfare labs in Ukraine. Just dismisses them. This is from USA Today. Fact check. False claim of U.S. biolabs in Ukraine tied to Russian disinformation campaign.
Did you? Okay, so I looked up that fact because I wanted to see what the facts that were wrong in the fact check. It's not America doesn't own those labs. They're in Ukraine's name. They're not U.S. labs technically because they're all run by. Like, why are they running that?
So when you see this, it says U.S. resumes biolab in Ukraine. That's from Telesur. What do you mean resumes? This was fact checked to be false. This was already fact checked to be false. How could you say that? There it is. USA Today fact checked it. Last year in February of 2022. This is false.
No, they just have a treaty. I don't know why, if it's just Ukraine's and not America's, we would have a treaty for them to have biolabs. Doesn't really add up. Then why are we involved at all?
Right.
If they have their own but I thought the fact check was going to be something like, well, they're actually peaceful biolabs. So it's because
mostly peaceful.
This weird technicality that it still doesn't really address.
So this is Ella Lee, USA propagandist, doing some garbage reporting and actually doing fake news. That's called fake news. So that's why they say they don't like Alex Jones, because Alex Jones would do fake news. That's what they say. And now, of course, we see there's USA Today and Reuters. They're doing it all the time, 24/7. They're the ones actually doing fake news all the time.
I bet they admit that Iraq was a bad idea now.
Now,
at least. You got to give them 20 years to come around.
So you want to see how we know that there's bio labs in Ukraine? And I wouldn't be surprised if Fauci was the guy who was funding them, because
they sound very Wuhan-ish.
If JFK or RFK Jr. Revealed on this show that Fauci was put in charge of the Pentagon's bioweapons research
after the anthrax thing?
after the anthrax thing, somewhere around 2002 or 3 or something like that, which is why he was the highest paid guy in government, because he also got that job. So he was the NIAID guy, whatever, and then he was also the Pentagon's bioweapons guy, and then he was authorizing bioweapon research all over the place. Viruses escaped 3 times in the United States, so they shut down that gain of function here, and then they shipped it over to places like Ukraine and China, probably, right? So here's Marco Rubio asking Victoria Nuland if there are bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and he got the wrong answer.
Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware of that.
You know what she sounds like? One time in college, I remember we lost 1/8 of like really good weed in a thrift shop, and my girl was like, "Did you find like a green bag?" That's how she sounds.
That is how she sounds. So if they're not bioweapon research, why would you be afraid that they would fall into Russia's hands? That right? Of course, right? And so
the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country, and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Classic. That's just the Russians do that. She would never do that. Classic,
bro.
we don't do that. Americans never do that.
Russians always making up a pretext to go invade somewhere.
Classic. Hey, Marco Rubio, Russia might take our non-military civilian research. We worked hard on that research. That's
do
why
your
he's
own homework, Roger.
That's why he's upset. Here it is again. This is from March 10th, 2022, with CIA Director Bill Burns. Here we go.
What I think got some people fired up is when she said, we're worried that the Russians will get a hold of these facilities, because that implies that there's something in those facilities dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what that implies.
Sheepa Beware in the D-Live chat says that they think that this woman is talking out of Uranus. Her Uranus. That's a new one. That's very funny.
Right? So
I don't know if you could shed some light on how there can be things in a lab that are dangerous, but they not be weapons labs.
All I would say, Senator, is that the danger here, it seems to me, is the capacity the Russians have developed and that they've used in the past, and their interest in trying to create false narratives here as well. To the best of my knowledge, you have to be careful about any of those substances you've talked about, which you see in public health or research systems around the world for civilian purposes. You have to be careful about that. That is in no way akin to the kind of threats that would be posed by, weapons research and development or weapons facilities.
No, just a green bag. There's nothing. Just did you find a green bag? If you find one, call this number.
Find a green bag. This is the green bag with some green stuff in it. You find it. So that was that guy. Hey, how could it be dangerous if it's not a bioweapon? Mumble, stammer. Once again, Russia disinformation mumble.
Trump, Putin, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, collusion. Trump, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Russian hacked our election. Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian, possible collusion, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russians, collusion.
Collusion with the Russians. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Prove collusion. Prove collusion.
Was there collusion?
Absolutely.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion. 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 Trump, Russia, potential collusion. Trump, Russia, potential collusion.
And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion and Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion.
All 17 intelligence agencies.
17 agencies.
17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed.
17 of our intelligence agencies.
17 intelligence agencies.
17 different United States intelligence agencies.
All 17 of them.
People are very worried.
I've seen 6-year-olds lie more convincingly about if they brush their teeth or not than this guy. Did you brush your teeth, Timmy? Russia lies a lot. Neither this guy nor Victoria Nuland denied that they are bioweapon facilities. Did you notice that? And so that brings you to our article, U.S. resumes bio. The Russian Defense Ministry has asserted that the United States has recommenced its contentious biological laboratories initiative within the territory of Ukraine, with a primary focus on the construction of secretive new facilities and the training of personnel. During a media briefing held on Friday, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, the commander of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical defense forces, presented a new collection of documents regarding purportedly U.S.-funded biological programs in Ukraine. During the briefing, he stated, despite the forced pause pertaining to the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, the United States activities under the program have now been resumed. The main task at this stage are to continue the construction of biological laboratories in Ukraine, as well as expand the format for training Ukrainian biologists. Krylov referenced the meeting minutes of October 20, 2022, wherein delegates from the U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency, several Ukrainian dignitaries, and representatives from Jacobs CH2M engineering firm were in attendance. The reported agenda of the meeting pertained to the recommencement of biological research activities in Ukraine, which had been temporarily halted in the context of the conflictual situation between Moscow and Kiev. Boy, these people really write weird. Now the project has been resumed with focus on renewal of legislative support, revision of training schedule, as well as conclusion and resumption of construction work, the Ukrainian language protocol stated. According to the document, it was revealed that the program, which was originally referred to as Joint Biological Research, has been renamed as Biological Control Research.
Great.
We're going to control it. I was like what they did at Wuhan.
Yeah.
We're going to control. These are control. Well, you're going to be. How do you know you're going to control? It says right in the name.
We're going to call it the No Pangolins Allowed Club.
According to Krylov, the United States has undertaken measures to mitigate any risks of information leakage stemming from the Ukrainian experts concerning the authentic essence of the biological research program. Okay,
classic Russian propaganda.
Classic. So good news. We're back doing really risky shit in Ukraine.
Yeah, now is the best possible time to resume that sort of research in Ukraine.
Unbelievable.
Yep. All right. I would highly suggest you guys check out Jimmy Dore Show. He kind of
go to jimmydore.com to see.
Yeah, so it gives us a sense of what people who are essentially awake to what's going on, but maybe not fully awake in a lot of areas because they're still kind of like have progressive policy ideals. But definitely, it's worth seeing that side of the fence from a position where they're calling out a lot of the same stuff, with Russia Gate and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, and they had a particular funny episode yesterday. There was a we'll see if we have time for it. Maybe we'll do some overtime. I'll play a couple more clips of that where they had this guy come on. I can't remember the guy's name. It was like I want to say a British guy or someone from across the pond. It was really funny. Anyway, moving on here. Give me about 30 seconds here to find our next.
Saying it's not sure if there is more to come after dozens of classified documents were leaked online and now circulated around the globe. Some say it's worse than the Edward Snowden incident. I think it could be. Let's see what we know so far. First off, how we found out about it. In January, it turns out some top secret information was on this fringe site called Discord. Now, Discord put it out. They were picked up by Minecraft. Then it was put out on Telegram. Now,
Okay, I'm sorry. It's not a site, dude. It's more like an app or a service. So it's like you have do your fucking research, man.
Telegram is also often used by the Russians. Now it's thought that.
There you go. I already played the Russia thing. I can't do it again because that's well maybe later. But there you go. What?
That fringe site called Discord. Now, Discord put it out. They were picked up by Minecraft. Then it was put out on Telegram. Now, Telegram is also often used by the Russians. Now, it's thought that at that time, the Russians started manipulating some of the data because it talked about some of the war.
Oh, so even Fox News has to run cover for the for the casualty numbers that were reported in these documents. They're like, they were totally altered. Oh, my. I mean, I'm not surprised. This is why we look at all angles of the fake news. So here you have Fox News running cover for the war machine.
Casualties that are horrendous, 200,000 for the Russians. Somehow, mysteriously, it's listed at 16,000.
Mysteriously. Well, just mysteriously. These are totally legit documents, except for that part. That part you can't pay attention to. Definitely don't pay attention to the to the death differentials. Holy shit. We're not even a minute into this. We're not even in a minute into this. I'm playing this because he's about to bring on Ratcliffe, and I think we're about to see a lot of what Ratcliffe's character here. What he's going to do with that information. Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Like I said, we're not even a minute into this. And he goes, no. Don't worry about those truth totals.
Manipulating some of the data because it talked about some of the war casualties that are horrendous, 200,000 for the Russians. Somehow, mysteriously, it's listed at 16,000. The Pentagon announced last week, hey, you know what? We have to investigate it. Now, why was the Pentagon announcing it last week? They only found out about it last week. Think about this for a second as we switch screens. They found out about it last week. It's been out.
I don't believe that for a second. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that they're monitoring about through NSA and all this shit, and as much scrutiny as they put on these Discord servers. At this point, you'd have a random FBI agent out there grooming somebody on Discord that might have come across this by this time. I mean, come on.
Since January, weren't you under the impression, like me, that we'd have some eyes and ears everywhere on various sites and social media around the globe? I was. On Monday, we thought we'd get revelations. Admiral Kirby, unlike his Afghanistan briefing, honest, saying, I don't know. Ukraine understands that part of the intelligence that's leaked is about their surge in the spring. The spring is now, the surge about to happen, so they quickly have to change plans. Also becomes clear that Ukraine needs some missile defense missiles to go into their missile defense systems. Senator Schumer says, hey, I got an idea. You're a Democratic administration. I'm among leadership. Can you brief us on what's happening? After all, this is a monstrous leak. And then, of course, Austin yesterday, the mantra over and over again. We take this very seriously. We're very concerned.
Yeah, did he say it with or without his face shield?
What's also very serious is that we're not only spying on our enemies, we're spying on our allies. Now, think about this for a second. We have 53...
We're also spying on our own citizenry. But, we go through the Five Eyes, so, to try to launder that. So, it's our favorite. It's like the world economy's biggest industry is laundering things. Information, money, arms...
3 documents we're focusing in on. Now, I don't have an answer to this, but Jennifer Griffin talking about this yesterday. They're looking at just February 23rd to March 1st. What are they looking for? They're looking for pictures. They're looking for the maps that are online. They're looking to find out why these pages were printed out and possibly are there markings from the printer in which they were printed out from. They include some documents from the CIA and Department of Intelligence. Think about that for a second. Not only Pentagon information, not only intelligence information, but CIA information is now out and about. They say between 5,000 and 10,000 people in Washington had access to this. Did they leave any of it out? And, of course, documents suggesting Ukraine's air defense system is in a low supply. They also talk about they've taken a beating, but also how inept the Russians are. And finally, let's take a look at what's been revealed again. And actually, this is, I think we actually did everything. Oh, I just want to point this out, too. The Egyptians were going to sell weapons to the Russians.
Uh-oh.
But the problem is, we gave them $50 billion worth of weapons over the last 10 years. You would think they'd be loyal to us, what they're doing behind the scenes. Among the people upset, South Korea, Israel.
Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. Look, it's like, don't these people know that Russia bad?
And other allies. Let's bring in John Radcliffe, former director of national intelligence. John, is it...
No, after that whole tirade there, that's about 3 minutes. I'm really interested to see what Radcliffe's take is on that, because as you guys know, I don't preview a majority of these clips. Maybe I just look to see who they're going to bring on, because I want my reaction to be genuine. So I picked this because Radcliffe was going to give his opinion on this. I had no idea they were going to do that much propaganda just before they bring him on. So let's see what he does.
Possible to relate this leak to anything that's happened in the recent past?
Well, I think the comparisons to Snowden, I think you're right, Brian. It could be worse. The Snowden event was a one-time event. It was a massive volume. It caused grave national security damage. The problem with this is that it may be continuing, and specifically, the documents that have been released already are almost all at the top secret level. And so for your viewers, when we classify information at the top secret level, it means that the unauthorized disclosure of it is likely to cause grave harm to our national security posture. And when you look at these specific documents and what's in them, now you can see why. The granularity and the specifics, even beyond, troop movements and inventories and casualty numbers, in Ukraine is one thing. But what we're looking at here is not just a regional problem or country-specific problem. It's really across the globe. As you talked about, there is specific sensitive intelligence relating to all parts of the world, all parts of our adversaries and our allies, North Korea, South Korea, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. It goes on. And so, one of the things that's most concerning about this, Brian, is you hear the term sources and methods, protecting sources and methods. This really underscores why. When our adversaries can see...
So far, so good. I think that's a pretty measured thing. I will see if he pushes back a little bit more on the insinuations, because I'm sure Kilmeade might push him on the troop numbers. But we'll see what's going on with that. Thank you to what we have it stopped here. Thank you to Gatorman over there on the Foxhole Pill Chat with the cookie with the message "Love the show, Pinata." I appreciate, or love the Pinata show. Much appreciated, Gatorman. Thank you also to Raid on Antifa with the can with the message "Ooh shit." And that could have been just about any part. Was that during Oberman, or was that during here with the Pentagon thing, or with the Jimmy Dore stuff? Either way, it's all fun today. I'm having some fun. I hope you guys are having some fun as well. Do me a favor and share out the links. It's a little bit on the lighter side today. I don't know if they changed something with Twitter, but apparently I can't broadcast over there at the moment. It looks like they're updating something. So if you could share out the links on True Social and elsewhere, that would be appreciated. Okay. Thank you also to Doug Is My with the cookie. Much appreciated over there in the Foxhole. You can also check out Raid on Antifa over there on the Foxhole. Does a show as well. So here we go.
The specific information that we have in terms of communications about a space launch in Iran, or an ICBM launch in North Korea, or even the South Koreans and concern about our request to provide munitions in Ukraine. It allows all of them to look and see where we're listening or how we're getting information, people who may be sources. And so that's the harm to our national security, is that those are all jeopardized. We're trying to figure out who did this over here, but they're trying to figure out over there how we got that information, from who, or how we're listening to them. And that is a continuing, concern and really problematic, again, to our national security posture on a global basis.
Trust has been breached. The sense that America is a mess gets reinforced, and they can't be trusted in what they say. How about things like this? A couple of revelation. The Wagner Group is clearly spreading itself and trying to undermine us in Africa and Haiti. We now know that. They claim in some of these documents that the Mossad is fomenting some of the unrest against Benjamin Netanyahu. Think about how complicated it does, it gets things domestically. And in South Korea, we're pushing them to give munitions. Politically, that is problematic for them because they have North Korea there and China over here. So that exposes a lot. Also, our pristine intelligence of what Russia is up to. You got to wonder, as they look around, who they can trust and how we know. Nothing is good about this, and the worst could be yet to come.
All righty. I think it did all right. It wasn't too bad. Let's see. What do we got up next? We have here we go.
Joining us now, by the way, I got a copy right here, author of the trial.
Okay. Book. Okay.
It's in studio. Good to see you, Professor.
Thank you
Here, look, it's all of Hannity's viewers.
for having me, Sean.
We appreciate you being with us. I know you agree with me.
All right, so this is how can Alvin Bragg put this man on the stand? I'm assuming you're talking about Cohen here.
About, the extremists on any side.
Look, I got powder, too. My secretary had to be hosed down, taken to Mass General Hospital the same day the Wall Street Journal got it. Mine did have some stuff in it that was very negative, and she had to be treated.
Wow.
Nobody should be treated that way.
Oh, my assistant, was in tears for hours, scared to death, rightly so. Never mind the fatwa that was put on my head. That was an experience, too, a long time ago.
I only had a fatwa put on by Martha's Vineyard, and it's not...
I don't even know what that's about. All right, continue. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you this. First of all, let's talk about the lawsuit that Donald Trump has filed against Michael Cohen.
Good move. First of all, lawyers should not be violating lawyer-client privilege, number one. Number two, he gets discovery if he survives a motion to dismiss, and he's going to be able to find out things that the government wouldn't turn over to him in a criminal trial. So I think it's a very smart move to go after
Are you assuming
Cohen.
that he's preserved all this information, and isn't it likely that a lot of it doesn't exist?
Well, it's very hard these days to hide things forever. With the internet, with social media, if you get the right people, you can get things that people think they've hidden. So I'm glad we're going to get to the bottom of this. Look, transparency is essential. If people have nothing to hide, they shouldn't be worried.
Let's bring in Greg Jarrett. Greg, your take on Trump's suit against Michael Cohen.
Well, it's a legitimate suit. It's actionable in a court of law. It centers around the many lies of Michael Cohen. This is a guy who lied to the IRS, lied to U.S. banks, lied to Congress, and went to prison for it. And Trump claims in his lawsuit he, too, is a victim, causing reputational damage. But on top of that, what jumped out at me at the lawsuit is that it claims that Cohen committed theft and unjust enrichment by defrauding Trump over a phony business venture and pocketed an exorbitant amount of money over something that did not exist. On top of that, there's also a breach of fiduciary duty, which is pretty darn clear with Cohen, and breach of contract. It's bad enough that prosecutors called him a greedy liar, and the judge who sentenced him said he committed a veritable smorgasbord of fraudulent crimes and deceit. Can you imagine a district attorney using a guy like that as his star witness? The problem with inveterate liars is you never know when you're getting scammed, and it's hard to tell the jury, believe this guy. He's told so many lies you would need a calculator to keep track of it.
It raises ethical questions. A district attorney cannot put a witness on the stand who he reasonably believes may be lying to the jury. Now, how can Bragg put this man on the witness stand?
He's an admitted liar and a convict.
12 people, I vouch for him. Now he's telling the truth. Cohen wrote to me recently because I threatened to sue him because he told a lie about me. He had me on Jeffrey Epstein's island with young people. I've never been anywhere with young people.
Wait a minute, you were on Orgy Island?
That's what he says. That's what he said.
Just asking.
And it's not true.
I know you weren't.
It's not true. So I am threatening to sue him.
And all of a sudden, Alan's like, I'm going to sue you, Hannity.
As well, because, when governments go after witnesses, they'll do anything. They'll twist, they'll turn, they'll threaten relatives, they'll threaten everything. It's about time a defendant said, I'm going to fight back. I'm going to sue the person, and I'll get discovery too. Let's even the playing field. Let's level the playing field.
Last question. Will Bragg's lawsuit against Jim Jordan hold up, Greg Jarrett?
No, it won't hold up. The judge will not grant a temporary restraining order. It is so amazing.
All right, he's already trying to play him off. Okay. All right, let's see. They are... I'll save this one for overtime. Okay, let's see. So Trump's lawyer has no defense in interviews.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Donald Trump's lawyers have not learned their lesson and continue to give interviews with the press where either they further incriminate Donald Trump or, at best, they show that Donald Trump has absolutely no defense for the crimes that he committed. Just recently, one of Donald Trump's lawyers, Jim Trusty, gave it a shot after Joe Tacopina, Donald Trump's other lawyer, had fail after fail in his media interviews. And watch what happens on
totally failed.
The press, where Chuck Todd really just had a very basic question for Trump's lawyer, Jim Trusty, which was, you do realize that Donald Trump just lied in response to a subpoena that he received from the federal government after he stole thousands of government records? Watch this exchange.
He has done with classified documents what no former president has ever done.
That's not true. Look at every single past president of the past 30 years. What's that? At least 4 of them. One of them is deceased.
I mean, you keep trying to say all of those situations you represent, there was actual cooperation by those former presidents.
There's cooperation with Trump. It's called negotiation. Negotiation is not stonewalling.
To deal with the dispute. In this case, not only is he not cooperating, he is actively not cooperating. And again, he did not comply with a subpoena.
They responded. They complied with with whatever was responsive to the subpoena.
That's the end of the day. That's the obstruction charge. Why didn't he comply with the subpoena? There was a subpoena for all classified documents.
No, it was for documents responsive to the subpoena.
He did not comply with the subpoena. He was caught not complying with the subpoena. because of the search warrant ended up turning up more classified.
Again, if he was never supposed to have the documents in the first place, then they should never have sent them down to Mar-a-Lago. They should have vetted them when they had the possession of them. As a matter of fact, they could have taken everything in June, and yet they didn't. There was a dispute between the FBI and the DOJ as to whether or not they needed to go in there. And now with this revelation that I'm sure Midas Touch is never going to fucking touch with this special access request.
Classified documents. How do you explain him defying a subpoena?
Chuck, the Democratic narrative, which you're touting right now to try to draw a distinction
it's just a set of facts.
Well, let me finish.
Why call it a Democratic narrative? It's a set.
Let's just call it a deep state narrative. Does that make it better?
Because you're ignoring a set of facts. Let's talk about Delaware. You've got a vice president that has documents for decades in this Chinese-funded Penn Biden Center. Right? You've got absolute obstruction there because we don't even have any sort of...
How's that obstruction?
Because he had no right to have those documents.
Right, and
he didn't have any...
And did he refuse to turn them over when he found them?
Well, I don't know. It was hidden for so many months.
Again, did he turn them over?
Did his lawyers turn that over without any sense of chain of custody or any sorts of
Has the former
clearance?
president turned this over?
Well,
we don't
have the leaks coming from Rob Hur's investigation to know the details of exactly how stuff was turned over.
So is your defense that hey, we think other people broke the law, so let us break the law?
No, of course not. Of course not.
I mean, I just think that doesn't seem to be a good defense.
Chuck, the point of it is not to say that somebody else broke the law and we did too, it's okay. It's to point out that the common denominator, whether you're talking about New York, Georgia, or DOJ, is differential treatment for President Trump than anybody in history.
Now, listening to what Donald Trump's lawyer, Jim Trusty, said there, it seemed like a whole bunch of word salad. I'm not really sure there was.
Then you didn't pay attention to what he said. All right, what's the next clip?
Personal terms, the judge in this case, criticizing not just the judge, but his wife and even his daughter. We heard from another member of the legal team, from Joe Tacopina, saying that he didn't think that the judge is biased. Trump obviously does. Who's right about this? Do you think this is an impartial judge or not?
I don't have any experience with this judge, and again, my practice as somebody who's been in the criminal justice lane for about 35, 36 years is to not, jump onto any bandwagon when it comes to criticizing. I think the criticisms of the family were not something personal. It was pointing out that they have a bias, that they have a political interest that is contrary to President Trump's. But look, the bottom line is that stuff will play out. The New York team that's on the case is a very knowledgeable group of lawyers. I'm a huge fan of the recent addition of one of the New York former federal prosecutor, Todd Blanche. And so, they'll wade through this. If there's an actual legal basis for disqualification, they'll pursue it. I think the fundamental thing I would expect, and this is not from being in the huddle with them, but I think there's going to be some very well-placed motions to dismiss based on the legal frailties of this kind of, mental gymnastics indictment that Alvin Bragg is trying to piece together.
And then you know that Donald Trump has such a weak defense where Trump's lawyer, Jim Trusty, is already whining about the venue, right? One of the things that they say is they want to change the venue. They're not.
Right. It's because it's not a nothing matter. That there's no way he's getting a fair trial or a jury of his peers in Manhattan. Let's see. So I don't know. Apparently they received like another letter, a threatening letter. Apparently, I don't know how organic any of that stuff is, considering the types of games that these people are playing. So let's see. Continuing on the lawsuit thing, let's see what they're saying about the Trump suing Michael Cohen over here.
Yeah, I mean, he's suing him for defamation. He's suing him for violating the attorney-client privilege. I mean, these are real claims, real legally cognizable claims. They're not a phony indictment like Bragg brought. And but look, Michael turned into a pathetic liar.
I never want to agree with Rudy Giuliani, ever, but ick. Welcome into TYT's Overruled. I'm your legal analyst, Adrienne Lawrence. Yesterday, former President Donald Trump filed a $500 a $1 billion lawsuit in the Southern District of Florida against his former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, claiming that he breached his duty to act in his client's best interest and breached a contract or two. And I wonder where Trump got the idea of suing Cohen from.
Cohen wrote to me recently because I threatened to sue him because he told a lie about me. He had me on Jeffrey Epstein's island with young people. I've never been anywhere with.
Okay. This episode of Hannity was from last night. Trump filed his lawsuit yesterday. So how are you saying? So your timeline's all messed up. Is she really going to insinuate that Trump just got the idea because he's watching Fox News all the time or whatever? I guarantee that's where she's going to go.
With young people.
Wait a minute, you were on Orgy Island?
That's what he says. That's what he said.
Just asking.
And it's not true.
I know you weren't. I know.
Now, this suit comes in the wake of Trump being indicted by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg.
But was he, though? I haven't seen any charges yet.
Based largely on statements that Cohen made to the DA. Bloomberg Law has some deets. Cohen, whose falling out with Trump has led to exchanges of insults between the men, also was accused of violating a non-disclosure agreement with Trump and fraudulently misrepresenting a $74,000 business expenditure, according to the suit filed Wednesday in federal court in Miami. In his suit against Cohen, Trump alleges his former fixer committed these breaches through myriad public statements, including the publication of 2 books, a podcast series, and innumerable mainstream media appearances. Some of Trump's allegations stem from statements, of course, as mentioned, that Cohen made in the books he wrote, including Disloyal, which Trump says is complete with misrepresentations and all sorts of lies. Furthermore, Trump goes after Cohen based on the podcast. In the more than 250 episodes of the podcast produced to date, defendant repeatedly and consistently reveals or purports to reveal confidential information gleaned by nature of his prior attorney-client relationship with plaintiff, as well as information pertaining to plaintiff's personal and private life, according to the suit. Now, as it concerns relief, Trump is seeking $500 million. Plus, he wants Cohen to return the $74,000 that he claims he basically stole. But let's be real here. This 32-page complaint is doing the most for a reason.
This legal complaint has the feel of a press release. It reminds me a bit of the lawsuit that Donald Trump filed last year against Hillary Clinton, the Democratic National Committee, and a host of other defendants over alleging that they engaged.
Yeah, it's alleged that they engaged in the giant Russiagate thing with the FBI. Yeah, just alleged.
In the quote-unquote Russia conspiracy, that suit was essentially laughed out of court. A judge said it was completely unfounded. This one, we'll have to see how it fares in the courts.
While this suit isn't brought in good faith, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have legs or potential legs. Cohen.
Let's see. Okay, I'm done with this lady anyway. Let's see. I just the condescension sometimes, I tell you. Let's see. Thank you to Filter Dog One over there on the Foxhole with the with 300 Go Pills with the message. I've been in. Let me try that again. Filter Dog One with 300 Go Pills says, "I've been in and out. Do we know who the leaker is yet?" Yes. Apparently, it's someone in this Discord chat called. Is an airman from the Massachusetts National Guard, a 21-year-old member of the intelligence wing, the Massachusetts Air National Guard, Jack Texiera, whatever. So that's what's going on with that. And but to me it seems like this whole thing screams of information laundering through the CIA. This is or this is them trying to cover it up. I don't know. It seems just way too convenient. It's like wrapped up in a neat little package, and it's just we've seen this too many times in other areas. Let's see. Oh, let's get into one of our main event right-wing outlets. Oh, you guys know where this is going. Right-wing outlets are weaponizing Tucker's Trump interview into dangerous propaganda. So somehow the things that Trump had said during Tucker's interview is now is dangerous propaganda. I don't know like what you would. Oh man. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find my volume control here because this guy is a screamer. just so loud. Maybe he has hearing problems. Isn't that something people do if they don't realize that their hearing is going out? They speak more loudly. I don't know. Somewhere I've seen that. Maybe at I wouldn't say press conference, but I know the current occupant of the White House definitely has that issue too. All right, here we go.
This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. The interview yesterday with Tucker Carlson is now being used ferociously by the...
Ferociously. The interview is being ferociously used. Filter Dog One says with the cookie on the Fox Upload chat, how the hell does an airman get those code word classified documents? That's what I'm saying. This thing screams of a cover up or like some sort of a laundering thing. This is way too convenient. So they immediately know everything about this person. Another person who knows the guy comes forward. And then, WAPO has all the articles. They're not behind paywalls. Like this whole thing, like I said, this is them trying to maintain some semblance of control after potentially something got leaked. And in the end, I mean, you have to wonder, is the whole thing just an op for support for more support with Ukraine? But when you have the intelligence apparatus of the media going out there, including Fox News and all the others, saying that the troop numbers, that's totally wrong. Well, maybe it is a real leak, and but this is what they're trying to do to cover it up. So, because that's one aspect that they definitely would not want out, and so that would be for me the only thing that would make it seem like a legitimate leak, as opposed to a planned leak. But maybe not. Maybe it is something that was more of a part of an overarching psyop, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. Thank you also to Zoe with the cookie with the message. Love this show and the best chat on the interwebs. That's absolutely true. If you're looking for the fastest moving chat, it's over there on pill.net. We got 226 over there right now. We got a little under 200 over there on Rumble, and with more chat coming through Rumble too. So we have our dedicated users over there. We have about 35 over there on DLive. Got a 1 or 2 or 3 in our Twitch chat, and of course we got about 7 over there in YouTube. So appreciate the viewership, guys. Alrighty, so let's see how he's going to take this and say that this is somehow an unhinged or weaponizing of an interview. I'm not really sure how that works, but okay.
The right-wing pundit class, and by Donald Trump's campaign for propaganda purposes.
You mean like advertisements or what?
The
That's what a political campaign is. It's literally propaganda. It's trying to convince people, convincing somebody uses propaganda. That's just what that is.
Lies that were told last night that were propagated against the United States, against Fox News viewing audience.
The lies were propagated against the United States.
But this attempt at rewriting history and making Donald Trump something that he is absolutely not is in full swing underway.
So what you're saying is it's going counter to the previous narrative, and so somehow because the propaganda narrative is being challenged, that is now an affront to the United States of America.
And it began on Twitter with some of the promo videos that were shared by Fox News and Tucker Carlson on Twitter.
You mean commercials? They showed commercials for the interview because they wanted people to view it? That's crazy. Why would you do that? You can't advertise for stuff like that. You're just spreading propaganda. And it's an affront to the United States, apparently.
Twitter. This first is from Monica Crowley, who says, Trump nails it. The biggest threat we face is from within.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is something they're going to try to this is a crime of information.
Oh, man, this is so easy. It's like all you have to do is whoever you're unable to criticize. Yep, you guys know the rest.
They're trying to commit on the American people. And they're again, it's projection. They're acute.
Oh, really? Projection.
Accusing the left, they're accusing Democrats of the thing they are guilty of.
There's no self-awareness. Zero self-awareness. Holy shit.
And I'm going to play this clip, and I want you to try to maintain composure, because he's saying that the threats that we face are not China, they're not Russia.
That's not what he said. He said the biggest threat, it comes from within.
They're not an international or a foreign threat that we face in this country.
Well, they're not in terms of economic is the biggest threat. Now, physical threat, you can argue, it's no one's interest to go to full-out war, especially with the nuclear powers between U.S., China, and Russia, right? So, but as far as he's not saying to ignore that. He's saying that the biggest threat is currently our self-sabotage.
They're internal. They come from within. And Donald Trump says this with a straight face, ignoring the over 1,000 arrests related to the insurrection that he incited.
Yeah, you want to... I'm not going to go there today with you on this one, but try that during the summer of Floyd, and you had zero arrests. As a matter of fact, you had a VP candidate bailing people out.
Ignoring the fact that the greatest threat domestically in our country is
what? He's going to say what? What's the greatest threat? He's going to use the whatever the current FBI talking point is. What is it? Domestic violent extremism.
From right-wing extremists.
There you go. You have to make sure. You forgot the word white, though.
The threat in our country comes from the growing white Christian nationalist.
Oh, there it is. Just fucking, it's predictable. You don't even have your own original thoughts, Jesse. And I really hope you see this one day. You have no original thoughts. You don't. You're not thinking on your own. You're being told what to say. Even if you are conscious of what you're doing here, you still have no original thoughts because you're just copying and parroting what the media is telling you to do. Don't you want some independence, dude? Don't you want to have a free mind and an ability to discern true information? No?
Movement, which is hell-bent to strip away LGBTQ rights, to keep stripping away women's right to reproductive health care and contraception.
So we've gone from him talking about world leaders, Trump talking about world leaders on Tucker Carlson's program, to him now saying that somehow all these different rights are going to be stripped away.
To fundamentally transform our country. Those are the threats, and they do come from within, but that's not what Donald Trump is talking about here. Watch this clip that Monica Crowley is celebrating that Donald Trump gets it.
Who's the biggest problem, sir? Is it China? Could it be Russia? Could it be North Korea? No, I said the biggest problem is from within. It's these sick, radical people from within, because we can handle, if we're smart, we can handle Russia, China. I did.
It is just too much.
I know. You have such a small brain and no ability, no capacity left from all the propaganda that's been shoved in your fucking head that you don't get it. So you didn't hear what he said. All you heard came from within, and your mind shut off like a switch because that's what the propaganda has told you to do. And you didn't hear him say, we can handle them. We can handle China. We can handle Russia. And I did. But we still have what is the biggest threat. The same kind of thing. These people can't handle nuanced thinking. It's binary thinking only. It has to be this and it has to be this. It has to be just be this and that. They're stuck on, like a checkerboard, right? It's all they can think of. It's just black and white.
It is so obvious, even to Republicans, that this is just brazen, flagrant propaganda.
I'm going to guess it came from Russia. Is it Russian propaganda?
Didn't stop there. Here's Trump War Room on Twitter, which is his campaign Twitter account. And the Twitter account, it communicated this. Tucker Carlson, on his conversation with President Trump, quote, This is from Tucker Carlson. His understanding of world affairs is so much more nuanced and sophisticated and pro-American than the moronic neocons currently in charge. It was remarkable. Watch Tucker Carlson saying this, which is now being signal boosted and amplified by the Trump campaign.
All right. It looks like we have breaking news here. Filter Dog One says that the guy, Jack Texiera, is being arrested, and there's footage of it on Twitter. He tagged me in that. I will check that out right after this video. Let's see. We have Chatty KC over there on the foxhole with the cookie with the message, "We need a red pill for cognitive dissonance." Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. Yeah, we'll work on that. Sometimes I think that this show, what we do here, or anyone else that goes out and takes a look at the lefty media and criticizes it, and actually, because we can honestly say that we've taken in all the different sides and angles of these stories and arrived of our own conclusions. Now, are they biased? I would say, I think yes, in a way, because we have an agreement with certain positions. So do we have to check that constantly? Absolutely. It's very healthy to even criticize Trump himself and other people within this America First movement or whatever. I don't really like to put a lot of large sweeping labels on it. It's just, I see it more as a common sense thing, right? But if you want to put a label on it, there you go. All right. Let's see.
We spent more than an hour with Donald Trump today, and we were struck throughout the course of the conversation how his grasp of foreign policy, this man who was supposedly stupid, his understanding of world affairs is so much more nuanced and sophisticated and pro-American than the moronic neocons currently in charge. It was remarkable. Let's send all our ammo to Ukraine. Zelensky's like Churchill. Okay.
Tucker Carlson would have you believe that Donald Trump is some next-level genius. He has such a tight stranglehold on foreign policy and international relations that he was shocked by it, by his intellect, by his mental acuity on matters that are deeply, deeply complex. Donald Trump, who said that there's two N-words, one is nuclear. This is the guy that Tucker Carlson would have.
See, the other one that he doesn't know, the other word is nice. I don't know if he knew that or not. So one is nuclear and the other one is nice. I don't know where his mind went, but in my mind, when I hear the N-word, I go, oh, that's nice. That's a nice word. That's what he means. He means the word nice. I'm being completely serious with that. Okay, so here's apparently this.
The New York Times and of course the Washington Post, which has been doing a lot of reporting on this over the last few days, reported on his identity. So I'm told by sources that the investigation kind of accelerated as a result of his identity becoming public. So now we expect that he's going to be taken to a federal court there in Massachusetts, in Boston, where the procedure will begin to remove him and bring him down to the Washington, D.C. area, where we expect that the charges are going to be filed for his connection to the leaking of these documents. At this point, there's not a lot we know about the exact charges. We expect we might hear more from the Attorney General and from the Justice Department soon, whenever they decide to make public the charges that are to be announced. But we do know, obviously, that they, as you can hear from that briefing just now at the Pentagon, they're treating this as a criminal matter. They believe that there's some serious national security damage that has been done by the exposure of these documents. The Washington Post said that there's as many as 500 documents that they had seen on various platforms, including on these chat rooms, Discord, which is a gaming platform. And so that's, of course, now in the hands of the Justice Department and prosecutors who are going to be bringing the federal charges against this young man. Again, 21-year-old Jack Teixeira, 21 years old, member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Again, those are pictures, we believe, of Teixeira being taken into custody by the FBI and by the investigators there who've been working this case frantically over the last few days.
Alrighty, well there you go. Alrighty. Filter Dog 1, I guess the post was taken down by Gorka, the one that you tagged me in, so it just looks like we found a couple others. Hopefully that's what you wanted to show. Okay, let's see, where are we at? Are we still entertaining this asshole? Yeah, I guess so. Alright, here we go. Actually, well, yeah, we'll finish this one and then we'll take a quick break.
You believe is some savant in the field of international relations. The propaganda has begun, and they didn't start with a fast walk or a jog. This is a full gallop in conservative media, the sphere out there, to try to convince the American people that, look, you don't have to listen to Donald Trump. We're saying it. The trusted voices that you listen to, we're saying he's a genius.
This idiot still thinks that people just watch Fox News. Are you kidding me? Half the people, I would say 70% of the people that would say they're conservative understand what Fox News is and doesn't watch it. Or watches it, in my case, like a little bit ironically or unironically.
The unfortunate thing is that...
Ironically? Either way. It's like a don't do that, or I don't know, whatever.
Right-wing propaganda is working. It's working on the front of whether or not trans rights are human rights. You've got influential...
So Trump talking about foreign policy somehow has an issue or an impact on trans rights. You've completely devolved, dude.
Media outlets out there who claim to be progressive, who claim to care about human rights, who are now spreading right-wing, hateful, discriminatory propaganda, which is allowing people on the left to, that kind of makes sense. At a time...
It's just, you can't make that. So he's upset that it's effective, is basically what he's saying. He's upset that it's effective.
When trans Americans' lives...
Okay, you guys heard what he just said. The name of this video is called Right-Wing Outlets Are Weaponizing Tucker's Trump Interview into Dangerous Propaganda. Okay, he had a discussion about foreign leaders. How does this have anything to do with what you're talking about now? It doesn't.
Are more at risk now than ever before. Do not fall victim to right-wing propaganda, whether that be Tucker Carlson or others that you've become accustomed to. It is all dangerous. It is all damaging. And it's meant to confuse. There are things we know for sure. Human rights are important. Civil rights are important. Safety and security of individuals is important. And that will not be met. That will not be accomplished. Those core principles of who we are, if we're going to allow the propagandists to win. Whoever they are. What do you think? I would love to know.
Really? I don't think I already told you what I think about it, but wow, that's just the guy has a video trying to describe how Fox News is propaganda while completely walking through, and if you guys saw the slow motion move, that's a propaganda technique in and of itself, where he starts with the subject material of it to get people in there, starts with a clickbait headline, and then weaves it all into, your rights are going to be taken, you are in danger, fear, by the end of it. That's all it was. It pushed people into hate, into fear, and which is, pretty much the same thing, really, when you get down to it, at the most basis of it. So, yeah, who's the propagandist, dude? Who really? Let's see. We'll go back to this in a minute. But first, let's go to some kind of a palate cleanser here. This is from the Babylon Bee, if I recall. Nurse worried she might have to care for patients if TikTok is banned.
It's me. Hi, I'm Nurse Claire Bishop. It's me. I'm the spokesperson for nurses for the preservation of TikTok. This week, I learned that Congress might ban TikTok. And I also learned that Congress is a group of people that make laws. I'm not into politics. I can't stress enough how devastating a TikTok ban would be for me and my other brave nurse influencers. When I heard that TikTok might get banned, I was absolutely crushed. How could they be so cruel? As someone who's committed to saving lives, I finally found meaning in TikTok. I think I speak for all nurses when I say that the most rewarding part of this job is seeing the look on a child's face when I show him that I totally slayed that renegade dance. If TikTok is banned, what am I supposed to do? Like, actually help sick people? Ew. Not on my watch. Whenever I'm on the brink of losing hope, I remember that famous inspirational quote. I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet. Megan the Stallion. Congress is worried that TikTok might help the Chinese, but that's racist against the good Chinese people, like Nurse Mendoza.
I'm Filipina.
In the end, no matter what happens, I'll be here, day in and day out, on the front lines, fulfilling my calling of garnering millions of views on whatever social media platform I can. Because that's what it's all about.
How smart is he, could you tell?
Top of the line.
Top of the line.
Yeah, they're all top of the line. Our guy's not top of the line. Never was. These are top of the line people at the top of their game.
Top of the line people at the top of their game. That was Donald Trump, of course, fawning over authoritarian dictators while dunking on America's leadership. Now, what I find so fascinating about this portion of Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson is Tucker Carlson's face, number one. But more importantly, how every conservative talk show host fearmongers about China and how Biden is too soft on China. But what does Trump have to say about Xi Jinping? What does he have to say about China in this interview? Well, the best is yet to come. Let's watch.
President Xi is a brilliant man. If you went all over Hollywood to look for somebody to play the role of President Xi, you couldn't find it. There's nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. People ask me, how smart is Xi? I said, top of the line. You never met anybody smarter. How smart is Kim Jong-un? Top of the line. You know, people say, oh, this and that. Really smart. He took over a country of very smart people, very, very energetic people, very tough people, at a very young age, and he has total dominant control. That's not easy. These are very smart. Putin, very smart. Russia right now is making massive amounts of ammunition. Sounds simple, right? But they're making massive, beyond anything they've ever made before. We don't have any ammunition. We've given it to Ukraine. We're not prepared to fight.
We spend close to $1 trillion a year on defense. Like,
Yeah, and then we give it straight to Ukraine. That's his point.
what are you talking about? We have no ammunition. Oh my God. But the fawning over Xi Jinping.
Yes, because it's then shipped elsewhere, meaning we don't fucking physically have it. That's the point.
Where are you, Mark Levin? Where are you? Mark Levin is like ready to go to war with China. And he's like, oh, but we're not ready. We're not ready because the military is woke under Biden.
Yeah. Look,
That's actually true.
I've always said bad idea to go to war with China. First of all,
Agreed, yeah.
because we have no bullets. Second of all, because who's going to play him in the movie? These are just, you should think about these before you invade another country. He is among the dumbest people in the world. Like, I get that he doesn't immediately sound as stupid as someone like Marjorie Greene or Lauren Boebert or something, but he honestly might be dumber, because I think he's almost like more sure of himself in his statements that he makes as if they're fact.
Like what you're doing right now?
Like, what he said about the dictator of North Korea, he took it over at a very young age, got total domination.
How did he take it over exactly?
I don't know how, clever
Yep,
stratagems, I assume, plans, you know?
Yeah, totally,
He's a
yeah.
clever guy. That's how the dynastic dictator of this country has total control.
So insane.
And like Putin, so smart. They're making ammunition. Well, yeah, I should hope so. They've lost tens of thousands of their soldiers, and they're losing a totally needless war. Now, you could potentially point that out as not being that intelligent. It seems like that would be an easy thing for an American politician to do, but he can't do it.
But I mean, look, could it be that Donald Trump is more sophisticated than we're giving him credit for? I want
Yes.
to play the benefit of the doubt. You know, give him the benefit of the doubt. Could it be that he's playing three-dimensional chess?
Yes. Three-dimensional chess. Three-dimensional chess. Yes. Very smart people over at TYT.
They were incredible. When I went to the courthouse, which is also a prison in a sense, they signed me in. And I'll tell you, people were crying. People that work there, professionally work there, that have no problems putting in murderers, and they see everybody. It's tough place. And they were crying. They were actually crying.
All right, before we get into this one, thank you to Cozy Bear over there on the Foxhole with the cam with the message. Hi, long time no much appreciated. Thank you to Cozy Bear. Good to see you again over there on the Foxhole. Alrighty, so now they're gonna try to poke fun at the at Trump's story, which was clearly hyperbolic. I mean, we understand that about him. Do you really think there's people that's like, oh, just cry? No, I don't think that. But I do think that there were people that were apologetic that said, I'm sorry, I have to ask you to do this. I'm sure that happened. But anyway, they take the most bombastic parts of whatever he says and always tries to try to say that this was being literal. Again, these people have no concept of nuanced thinking. It is completely this or that. It's binary.
Yes, Trump literally claimed to Tucker Carlson that employees at the New York courthouse where Trump was arraigned 2 weeks ago following his indictment were crying. That they were crying because they were so heartbroken over what Trump was going through. He said people were so apologetic to him that it was actually beautiful. Let's watch.
They said, I'm sorry. They'd say 2024, sir, 2024.
So look, let me just be fair and note that we don't have any evidence that this happened. We also have no evidence that it didn't happen, but
we're going to opine on it anyway.
During an interview with Tucker Carlson this week, apparently forgetting that Tucker Carlson said that he hated Trump with a passion in those text messages revealed in the Dominion lawsuit.
Yeah, people can't change their mind. No. It has to be this or that, right? Like, it's exactly what I'm talking about. They say, well, you said this previously, therefore, you can't hold a different position as you learn information. You can't do that. Because these people never grow. They're stuck in infancy. They're stuck in adolescence and their thinking. I mean, if you really want to understand why these people are so stupid, it's because of that. They have not advanced the way that they think. It's because they have no cognition. It's ridiculous. I'm starting to be more and more convinced that these people don't necessarily know what they're doing, that they actually are just fucking morons.
Donald Trump claimed that when he went into the courthouse to be arrested last week, the workers were crying. They were sobbing tears of pain and remorse and regret because they were so sad that they had to arrest the twice impeached former president of the United States. Here is what Donald Trump told Tucker Carlson. They were incredible when I went to the courthouse, which is also a prison in a sense. Like, okay, I'm going to have to go ahead and stop right there because no, like, it's a prison in a sense. Like, what does that even mean? Like, that's just a meaningless thing you threw in so that you could gather your thoughts to then tell your lie. Like, you throw in the little bit of filler so your brain has time to catch up and, you know.
Like what you're doing right now, you're stalling and saying the same thing again and again.
I guess avoid lag, and then you tell your lie. They were incredible when I went to the courthouse, which is also a prison in a sense. They signed me in, and I'll tell you, people were crying. People that work there professionally work there. As opposed to just like the amateur people, like the rookies, I guess. We're talking about the pros. Professionally work there that have no problems putting in murderers, and they see everybody. It's a tough, tough place, and they were crying. They were actually crying. They said, "I'm sorry." And of course, Tucker Carlson, being the coward that he is, didn't push back on any of these claims from Donald Trump, even though there's actually video, by the way, of Trump going into the courthouse where the workers there didn't even hold the door for him. Like, the door almost hit him in the face because the workers there didn't give a crap about Donald Trump. Okay? Now, if you were in a courthouse where I live down here in this deep red county, maybe you'd have had some courthouse workers crying for you. Maybe if you were in Texas, you'd have had some folks crying. But dude, we're talking about Manhattan, where you are historically unpopular. These people do not like you. So
of course he's going to get a fair trial, right?
You're going to tell a lie, you at least have to make it somewhat believable, right? But you just went out there like, nope, they were sobbing. These are professional workers, not the amateurs at the other courthouses. Like, that another statement that doesn't mean anything. Nobody was crying. And if there were any tears in that courtroom, by the way, bud, they were probably tears of joy that you were finally facing at least a little bit of accountability.
For a crime that has not yet to be stated.
That may have been a thing that happened. Perhaps you misinterpreted it. Maybe they were saying, "I'm sorry that this didn't happen sooner. I'm sorry."
Hilarious. Okay, moving on. Let's see, what else do we got on this playlist? All right, it's time for us to jump over to the land of MSNBC, otherwise known as, I don't know, we got to come up with a name with it. Propaganda land, or whatever. What do you want to call it? And the land of the vocal fry. All right, so apparently it's just map day. Because they're like, oh my God, he's just showing this stuff. And like, oh my God, he has classified documents. Because why would they have to deal with this now? Oh yeah, because their fucking classified documents hoax just got blown the fuck out with this special access request that we went over yesterday. That we went through with Mike Davis talking about that, about what the actual implications were. That in order for this to actually have gone through, executive privilege for these documents would have had to have been given by Biden himself. Now, you can argue the semantics of whether or not he himself, Mr. Cognitive Decline in Chief, does actually put his John Hancock on something to do this, but that is the current president's role. Permission structure in order to override the previous president's executive privilege. And usually it has to be done in such a way that it's of national security importance. And this is probably why we saw the push of this whole thing of these documents being nuclear in their capacity. So now, in order to counter that, they had to basically resurrect him showing something that was probably already declassified to some people. As a matter of fact, if he did, it would be automatically declassified, as is the process and his role as president. Now, sometimes they're gonna. I think they're about to say that he also showed it to people, and I think who was it that we first saw this with? Whatever dipshit it was earlier, said that it was also shared when he was not president. Well, it was declassified when he was president. So anyway, let's get into this. Here we go.
Another story breaking late this afternoon. You can imagine what our meetings were like today. Fresh reporting in the New York Times that offers a very rare peek at a consistent line of behavior and questioning about it.
So, I mean, you really think that this is something they just found out about this? Can you believe this? Can you believe they just found out about this a day after their entire case got blown the fuck out, and that they're countering with this? Oh, it's so believable.
Across multiple witnesses in special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the classified documents taken and stored at Mar-a-Lago. Citing 4 sources familiar with the matter, the New York Times...
Oh, look at it. Who's the lead author of this fucking thing? Maggie Haberman. So you know it's got to be true. So if you guys recall, Maggie Haberman interviewed Trump in January, like very early February of 2021, where she had an audio recording of him, and they were talking about documents and classified documents. So I seriously doubt that Trump didn't realize that was an early plant for him to understand. You know, I'm not saying that she hipped him up to it. Well, maybe she did by asking him about it. What I mean to say is I think it's very unlikely that Trump is blindsided by this document stuff after they basically laid out their plan through Maggie Haberman in her interview, and especially with all that stuff about the throwing documents and the ripped up documents in the toilet, also through her. She's the one that was responsible for that story. So with all of that, you can't tell me, especially even into the, just historically looking into some of the Q drop information, right? So that she was always brought up. So just meaning she was like in the public view. So you can't tell me that he didn't understand this. He got blindsided with this. I'm just not buying that. So here we go. In order to counter the revelation yesterday from American First Legal about the special access request, here you go. Here's the counter propaganda.
Reports that federal investigators are asking witnesses whether Donald Trump showed off to aides and visitors a map that he took with him when he left office that contains sensitive intelligence information. Now, the nature of the map and the classified information it contains is not yet clear, but still, it might serve as a clue that it is now possible investigators, for their part, have successfully moved on from establishing the facts in this case to a point where they're focused in on proving intent in a case that could result in obstruction of justice charges for the twice impeached ex-president. Joining us now, New York Times Washington correspondent and MSNBC contributor Mike Schmidt, Palm Beach County State Attorney currently. Dave Ehrenberg is still here. Molly's still with us as well. Mike, take us through what your colleagues are reporting this afternoon.
Well, here's why I think it's significant. If you're going to make this case and you're going to take this extraordinary decision of charging a former president, yada, yada, that's,
Second. After Bragg.
Correct.
Yeah.
Federally. First time.
This is like slightly less extraordinary move, but still extraordinary. Yeah.
And you're going to want to know why he did what he did, not just why was it that they provided the Justice Department with misleading, inaccurate information about whether they had the documents, but why was it that he took the documents? And that was something that we saw in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Why was it that she had used the email server? Because at the heart of
why is in order to sell access to her server. That's what we know.
That question sort of gives a larger explanation for whether and what the criminal intent may have been.
Oh my God. Are you serious with this shit? Holy fucking shit. You're literally using Hillary's illegal email server to try to say that this is what Trump was doing without insinuating that it was Hillary. Holy shit.
In the Hillary Clinton email investigation, they were never able to get beyond the idea of convenience.
You fucking idiot. Oh my God, these people are fucking desperate. Holy shit, are they desperate.
Here, if you have a former president of the United States with documents that are marked classified, showing them to people like they are trophies or in some other way hey, can you believe what this says, or whatever. It sort of, it leads you down a path where you have a better understanding of why he was doing what he was doing and saying, man, this really doesn't make any sense. It's not like, oh my gosh, I took this home by mistake. I need to give this back to the government. I can't believe I just found this in my desk. It's like,
it's a trophy. Yeah.
Look at what I found.
His son's killed baby elephants. He's got classified maps. Do you think there's any connection to this line of Jack Smith's probe, which is still largely opaque to us, except for reporting like this, where we learn some of the questions, and Bill Barr sounding like he's, more certain than Andrew Weissman or Neil Katyal that Trump will and should be indicted for obstructing the investigation into classified documents?
There is no investigation into the classified documents. That is completely made up. This is what the special access request has shown, because they got access to those other 15 boxes. Then they continued to push on this. It was this entire thing as a political hit job set up, for all coming from the Biden administration.
I understand why people like to make a lot out of Bill Barr's takes on different things.
Just this one.
No, this comes up a lot. It comes up a lot.
Really, just this one.
It comes up a lot.
He sounds like he's testified himself. He sounds so invested in Trump being held accountable in the in just the obstruction prong of the documents case.
This isn't an answer to your question, but there was, when covering the Trump presidency and all the investigations, out of all of the players on the field, there was no one that I saw, maybe besides Don McGahn, that had the ability to move around on the chessboard and had the political instincts. What
is it with this whole chessboard that they keep talking about? 3D chest. These people can't say the word chess. They always have to end with the chest. They're 3D chest
to do it. And this
right? Did I hear that wrong?
Had the field. There was no one that I saw, maybe besides Don McGahn, that had the ability to move around on the chessboard and had the political instincts to do it and the savvy to do it than Bill Barr. So I would just say that when Bill Barr is out there saying things like that, you have to look at them through the lens of someone who has tried.
A from PA says it's a map for them on how to get their head out of their asses. I like that one. That's a good one, A from PA.
Tried to politically maneuver this for himself in many, many different ways. So, Bill Barr is not the Attorney General anymore, so I'm not sure why.
Yeah, no, look, it's a fair warning that his motives, I think, are always a wrinkle in anything that he's saying publicly, especially a lot of these comments are made on Fox News. I think over the weekend they were made on ABC. He seems to play to audiences. He seemed to relish his role as a subject in the January 6th probe, saying bullshit over and over and over again, knowing that we'd repeat it, and he'd curry some openness. What do you make of what appears to be the strength and the intensity of the obstruction investigation?
Yeah, obstruction is the big whammy here because it's punishable by up to 20 years in prison. But there's also something else at play here, and I agree with everything Michael said. But I think the reason why they asked about the map is that another statute, 18 U.S.C. 793E, the espionage statute, actually says that someone who is unauthorized to have possession of a map.
All right. Well, first of all, he's authorized to have possession of this map. So anything you're about to say is completely irrelevant. And this isn't me dismissing it. I know Jesse Dollemore and these other fuckers would say, "Oh, you're just an apologist. You're just buying into the propaganda." No, I've looked at this thing extensively for an entire year and a half. This is what this entire show has been built upon. What the fuck you people are saying about what's going on. Then I look into the actual facts of the matter and look at counterpoints. And we actually arrive at the truth. And so this entire thing has been entirely contrived and manufactured. So why are they even talking about this at this point? So now you're saying that you need a new thing to go after him about because the documents thing doesn't work anymore? Now you have to go back to this whole thing where he's just like, now you're actually bringing in the Espionage Act into this thing? I'm not buying this, especially a day after your shit got wrecked by this special access request information coming out.
And then shows it to someone who can't see it, violates that statute. So they're not just going after him for obstruction, but also espionage, which is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. So that's why there's a lot of trouble ahead. That's why Bill Barr is saying, hey, this is the tough one, man. Yeah. It's not going to be New York. I think that's really going to do in the former president. I think it's the Mar-a-Lago documents because there's a direct tie between the former president and the alleged criminality there.
Alleged, and it's not even there. So there is no connection because, again, he's allowed to have the fucking documents according to the Presidential Records Act. There's a negotiation thing that happens with NARA, the National Archive Records Administration. This is immutable. That is a fact. You cannot escape that fact, so you have to try to manufacture some bullshit here by saying that, oh my God, he showed around a declassified map. Whoop-de-doo.
And you live in Palm Beach. You even heard of any parties where maps are the party favors? Not yet?
Well, Trump likes to be the big showman,
These people do like promoting maps, let's just say.
Oh, the boss, the big baller, and that's why he has a big shoe from Shaquille O'Neal that he keeps in his office to show off guests. Well, what's even better than a Shaquille O'Neal shoe? How about some
classified maps?
Sensitive maps, nuclear secrets.
So the other part of this.
There it is, the nuclear secrets. I knew this was coming out. There's a reason why he's used the euphemism of N-word and saying N-word is nuclear, is it gets them to actually cover it and it gets them to talk about it. And I think it's a little bit of a jab because of where they always go with this classified documents bullshit. They always say it's nuclear secrets of another country. Nuclear secrets. Let's see. Thank you to Ginger45 over there on the foxhole with the cookie. Much appreciated. Thank you also to Mountain Dog Boy with the cookie as well. Good to see a friend. Friends, right? I consider Ginger45 a friend too, and everyone else out there. I appreciate the support and the viewership as we go through and wade through this propaganda bullshit, and really just having fun with it. That's really what it is. It's just making fun of these losers. Alrighty. So let's see. All right, continuing on here.
Other than the legal and Trump being Trumpy, is the national security concerns. Let me show you what Sue Gordon had to say on the show.
The first thing I would say, there is zero defense. I cannot imagine it.
All right, when I was scrolling through and finding these clips, I was like, I'm not going to get taken for a ride in this again because I don't know if you guys recall, it was like 4 or 5 months ago, which is kind of stretching it for. I'm sure most of you guys try to forget seeing my show as soon as you see it. But this biatch over here, so she had Nicole Wallace had replayed this clip. So I'm glad that they finally put the date on this one. So this is August 31st. So this is about, less than a month after the raid. So this person was a former intelligence official. I want to say CIA or something like that. Did she just introduce her? Hang on.
Security, legal, and Trump being Trumpy, is the national security concerns. Let me show you what Sue Gordon had to say on this.
Yes, Sue Gordon. That's what it was. Sue Gordon. So the previous, what was it? What was her position?
The first thing I would say, there is zero defense. I cannot imagine a defense for the situation in which we find ourselves.
I thought she was going to Sue Gordon. All I see is this giant donkey in front of me.
There's just none. There is no.
Another word for donkey is an ass. All I see is an ass on my screen.
No justification. There's no excuse. No defense. Zero. From a national security and from a person involved. Motivation is a much harder thing to ascribe, and I'm usually loath to say what I think other people are thinking. My experience is that the former president.
Okay, there it is. Former deputy of director of national intelligence. Okay, deputy DNI
has his agenda, and he will use whatever is at his disposal to advance that.
She chose her words very carefully. That was Sue Gordon, the former deputy director of national intelligence, saying something so carefully it sort of froze me in my tracks. But he has his agenda. It may be showing off next to the shoe. It may be something else. We don't know. But it's clear Jack Smith is going to answer that question.
Oh my God, they got it in person. Ugh, good Lord. I mean, this is, if you ever wanted the picture of, I don't know, the poster it for whatever, that this is the one. It's a giant glasses with colors, with just the way the hair is. Just like the posture. this is the left embodiment. Like this is like personified, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look, Trump has there's always been a lot of smoke, right? And there's never been, just like with
I'm surprised they got her to come out of her cat hair infested apartment behind her books that she probably doesn't read to get her into the studio. I mean, they're probably gonna have to have like these professional like Serve Pro, like the people that handle like fires, the aftermath of like giant floods or fires to buildings to come in after this person leaves.
Fox News. There's always been smoke.
Burn that chair. You're gonna have to put that thing in a fucking bonfire too. That you're never gonna be able to sit in that chair again.
But with some of this stuff, you definitely see you're starting to see the outlines of fire. So I do think, there's a lot. I mean, it definitely seems like he's got us.
Barry Dillon on the Fox Love Pill chat says that their pronouns are libtard/moron. I think that's pretty apropos.
Sort of idea of where he wants to go, Jack Smith.
Mike, there was a frame through which we tried to understand the Mueller probe as proceeding along the coordination with Russia and actors like Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, and then Trump's own conduct, obstructing the investigation into his circle and their contacts and coordination with Russia.
What? that was her explanation of Russiagate.
Like Paul Manafort, George, proceeding along the coordination with Russia and actors like Paul Manafort.
I like his eye roll there.
As proceeding along the coordination with Russia and actors.
There is no coordination with Russia.
Like Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, and then Trump's own conduct, obstructing the investigation into his circle and their contacts and coordination with Russia.
They absolutely know what they're doing. Like I said, I go back and forth between whether or not these people are just fucking morons or that they actually understand what they're doing and spreading propaganda. I put her in that she knows what she's doing, because you can't understand those names and what they did and what was going on with that, especially with the revelations that have come out from that. Will they acknowledge that? No, but the way that they gloss over some of that, they'll say like, oh, well, Michael Flynn, who lied to FBI and pled guilty. It's like, there's a way more to that story than you just completely left out. The lies by omission, to me, gets under my skin more than anything about their voices, more than anything about just the straight up lying part, because it's the omission part that is for me the greatest misinformation and disservice and the propaganda to our population. Like, this is the thing that for me is the worst offense, is that then they know what the actual story is, but they just give brief details that kind of are kind of true, because yes, Paul Manafort was involved, yes, George Papadopoulos was involved, but they mischaracterize what their actions were, what part of the story and what role they played, and that kind of just it just gets me every single time.
Do you get the sense that this is proceeding along to...
Someone is asking what words are on her shirt. My guess is it's going to be smug and cunt somewhere all over that shirt.
Tracks in the documents probe, or is the only bifurcation seem to be Mar-a-Lago and January 6th?
I think Mar-a-Lago and January 6th, because I think that they're all sort of intertwined, because you have to understand why he took them, how he took them, what he did with them when he...
How he took them? He packaged them up in boxes. They put them on pallets. They put them in green shrink wrap. They were sent to a General Service Administration facility in Maryland, where they were not looked through, because they tried to make that point, saying that we didn't touch the boxes, that we totally sent down to Mar-a-Lago. And, we didn't mess with the contents. They went straight from the White House straight to Mar-a-Lago. Now, whose decision was that? Oh, the acting president's. Oh, shit, that must be an act of declassification, because that's definitely sure as shit suggests intent. Huh. All right. Well, there you go.
He took them, and then why they provided the misleading account, and it's all tied in.
It wasn't misleading. They said that they gave them everything that they wanted, responsive to the subpoena.
In together. So
if the subpoena had said all documents, if it had said that, then the FBI would have gotten them in June, if they had said that. Why do I think it does not say that? Because they would be saying that the subpoena they'd be showing it. That thing would have been leaked. It would have actually said what, So anyway,
I think that they're all sort of one of the same. There was a line in the story by my colleagues today in the Times about the map, and in which they said that they thought that all the witnesses had been spoken to who could really provide any information here. Now, it's very, very difficult to predict the future about whatever, but that sort of shows, a progression in the investigation. I don't think we're at that point in the January 6th investigation, as there are still witnesses whose testimony is being litigated, worked out, et cetera, who have still not gone before the grand jury. So that was a tidbit, halfway through the story that was sort of like, okay, well, things are moving ahead here. Now, does that mean that, we're like imminently sitting on anything? Who knows? And I think it's very, very difficult and dangerous to try and predict and to try and read the tea leaves of what's going on inside. As we've covered all these investigations, it's just, you think you have some sense of it, but you really don't know what's going on in behind those closed doors.
There was a sense that the Barr, Rosenstein, O'Callaghan sort of chain of command over the Mueller probe looked dismissively and derisively at obstruction of justice as a charging or as a criminal bucket. Dave's comment is that that's where a lot of the heat is. How do you think this Justice Department looks at Trump's efforts to obstruct efforts to regain possession of national security documents?
This guy has a look. This guy is a useful idiot. I'm sure of it. This is Michael, whatever his name is, and he is Maggie Haberman's writing partner. So almost every article that Maggie Haberman has, he's involved in it. And this guy seems like way too confused to really understand what's going on. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Like I said, I go back and forth. Are they useful idiots, or are they just absolutely aloof and morons?
I don't know. I think if this is another thing here where we're trying to predict, how does Merrick Garland view the world? And when Merrick Garland doesn't really say much. If Merrick Garland is a person who is an institutionalist trying to reset the norms, then the only thing I can take away from that is that if a special counsel said they wanted to bring charges in something, he probably would go along with that, sort of following the norms of, okay, well, I appointed the special counsel to do an investigation. They're an independent investigator who has found this thing. Would Merrick Garland override that? At the same time, Merrick Garland will be in a position where he has to decide whether to charge the likely Republican nominee against the President of the United States, who,
All right. Apparently, we have breaking news here. Mitch McConnell may be retired after he's been hospitalized. We really haven't heard much from him. But the problem is, I guess, according to DC Drano here, is that there's a Democrat governor, and so there would be a replacement through the rest of his term, which is Senate is a 6-year term, right? So that would be, kind of a long time. Bad news, John Cornyn wants to be the new GOP leader. Yeah, that's a rhino, if I'm not mistaken. So, well, we'll see what happens.
We'll be running against him. He'll have to decide whether it's in the best interest of the country to do that. And I think that's a very easy thing for people to throw around and say, oh, well, the facts are there, whatever. But my guess is that that's a humongously extraordinary decision that's probably even exponentially bigger than we think it is, and will probably define Merrick Garland.
Is that how Merrick Garland, just as a prosecutor?
Okay, now there's actual Leader McConnell has a Twitter, his actual Twitter. His official Twitter says that this is from USA Land Shark. I am looking forward to returning to the Senate on Monday. We've got important business to tackle. And so wait a minute. This is from April 13th, though. Oh, that's today. Okay, never mind. I must have been time traveling in my mind. So apparently that might be fake news. So there you go. Well, this is why we have the live chat. Okay, here we go.
Is that how it should be made? That this is a huge decision for the country, or should Merrick
Although both those links came from you at USA Landshark,
Garland look at his line prosecutor and follow the facts? What do you, in your world, what is the correct way to handle wherever the evidence leads Jack Smith?
As a state prosecutor, you just follow the evidence and the law. But when you're a U.S. Attorney General, and this is a historic moment, you also consider what's best for the country. And I didn't think that Merrick Garland wanted to be here. He was slow rolling this investigation from the beginning, and he was pushed into putting Jack Smith, a pit bull, in charge of the investigation only because Donald Trump committed an unforced error. He announced for president so early to try to intimidate Merrick Garland, to try to dissuade him.
Well, it worked. I mean, Merrick Garland hadn't touched any of the Trump cases.
Well, what happened was he then put Jack Smith in charge. And so instead of a person that is known as being a bit timid in Merrick Garland, you've got this bulldog in Jack Smith who is ready to go. And the thing is, if Merrick Garland declines to prosecute, he has to explain it. There's got to be a report, and the public will know, is that the legacy he wants?
They'll go on the shelf next to the Mueller report. I mean, people have been investigating Trump and finding criminality for 7 years.
No, they haven't. They've been investigating Trump, and they have not charged him because there is no criminality. If you had anything, you would have charged it while he was still president.
Now, what do you think the stakes are of Jack Smith's work and Merrick Garland's treatment of it?
Well, I would just add that what we saw last week was that Trump really had one of his best fundraising weeks since he left the Oval. And
If this bitch had a margarita with salt on the rim of the glass, she'd melt.
so I do think
second to the insurrection.
Right,
I mean, like, we
the
just have to be honest about what else really raided in MAGA world. It was the coup and the insurrection.
Yes, and the
after the coup, then with
Yeah.
the arraignment.
That's right.
Yeah, everyone remembers the military coup we had on January 6th. Everyone, right?
And the base, I mean, the loser with the Donald Trump indictment last week was Ron DeSantis. So, Trump really killed it in the polls, and it really helped him. And, I think another one of these, and again, I mean, that's not what you should not focus on the craziness.
No, but it's part of it. But
This is what you call a vocal fry-off. This is what this is. It's a battle of the vocal fries. But in terms of who's more annoying, I don't know. Maybe we've heard from Nicole too much. But this other bish is it's rough.
my demented brain is like, how's Ron DeSantis trying to get arraigned and arrested now? Like, just to out Trump. It's sick stuff. It's a good point, though. All right, Mike Schmidt, thank you.
Yeah, sick stuff. Sick stuff, they say. It's sick stuff. Alrighty. We're like barely scratching the surface. I got a lot more to show you guys. Let's see. But first I want to do this. So there are areas that Jimmy just gets things completely wrong. And a lot of it just stems from, they don't necessarily like Trump, but they don't follow up on any of the stories about what's going on with it. So they kind of believe, or at least they're whenever they bring up these stories involving Trump, and especially Stormy Daniels in particular here, which we're going to get into, they have facts of the case wrong. They don't understand that she had signed an affidavit, essentially, a statement of fact that the affair never happened, that this was essentially extortion, and things like that. They don't understand the basic facts of the case.
So all the stories about how Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels, he did this thing with Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump made it illegal. Well, it just seems like Stormy Daniels keeps losing court case after court case to Donald Trump. Am I wrong? This isn't the first time she's lost a case, right?
Right. No.
Stormy Daniels is ordered to pay Trump team another $120,000 in legal fees.
Wait,
what?
so her legal name is Stormy?
I guess.
See, this is what I'm talking about. They don't have the basic. It's Stephanie Clifford's. We all get that, right? So it's like they don't have the basic tenets of the facts correct, and so it seems odd, especially for these guys, to be awake in certain areas, to not take that kind of energy into understanding other things, right? So we've seen this with a couple other different areas. In particular, I think they have a blind spot because they still dislike Trump, but they still sometimes they'll say, oh well, he's the first. Jimmy will say he's the first president that didn't start a new war in the modern era. So there is some weird thing that maybe it's some cognitive dissonance between them understanding what's going on with the real world versus what's the propaganda against Trump and all that. So I don't know. But it's interesting to see, and this is kind of why we use Jimmy Dore as kind of this example case of like the mentality, because I think a lot of us we lose sight or we forget about what was it like, in our own minds. I don't know. I was in the independent space, but I was living in Los Angeles at the time of my political awakening, so to speak. So I was in a very liberal-minded area, but still grew up from a very conservative type of background. So I had a mix of both. So I really was a true independent, and then I think maybe it was my own thoughts of like saying or kind of protecting myself. I don't know, where I was like, I knew I needed to be independent somehow but I didn't realize just how much it was a uniparty. And maybe that was subconsciously why I was pushing myself into this independent category, was because I was hearing bullshit on both sides. But it wasn't until the 2016 election that I really understood just how much these things were selections, how the barrier to entry was only something that Trump himself could get past for the longest time, because in all my entire lifetime, essentially had been political dynasties. You had Bush, Clinton, and then Obama. So that's all it was. It was like a dynasty type thing. All right, here we go.
She used her real name to do porn?
Maybe she changed it to Stormy
All
legally. 3,000 miles away from his New York legal drama, Donald Trump secured a substantial victory in another court. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with the former president in his effort to recoup additional legal fees from the adult film star Stormy Daniels, who had filed and lost a defamation suit against Trump.
Do you think it's Stormantha Daniels?
So anyway, you guys get the deal. Well, we already know the story there. So we're going to go to this. So they're going to cover this documents thing with the Pentagon and where is it? Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit. I'm
sure you've heard about the documents.
Okay, we talked a little bit about this yesterday during deplorable discussions, where people's view. I think Adel was showing an article where he's like, I can't believe I'm in agreement about what's going on with Julian Assange, and the squad and them and some others were saying that they agreed that what's going on with Julian Assange and is terrible, which, yeah, I mean, it actually is. I mean, whether or not, what kind of an agent, if he is an agent of the state system, whatever. To me, it's too complicated for me to actually say definitively what's going on there. But so Adel was talking about, I just can't believe he's in alignment. And I go, well, I think that especially with this Julian Assange issue, you put it with Snowden and some of these others, and now this one, apparently this person's going to be just as quote unquote famous as Reality Winner and the other ones that are there, Manning or whatever. So it's hard to understand really what this is about, because at the end of the day, the mileage that the intelligence community gets from this lends me to believe that there's something more that's happening. It's something that, but I don't know. Well, maybe we'll find out something different here. Maybe this was an actual organic leak, but there was someone really frustrated with off sending our billions and billions and billions to Ukraine. Maybe they saw it as an opportunity just before they ramp up after the winter here. That's a way to put the broomstick into the spokes of the bike and really derail this thing, which it probably will. Hopefully, I mean, it should. It should, but there's no reason for us to be there. I mean, okay. Anyway, let's see his take about this document leak.
Right. So these leaked documents on the Ukraine war, and it's really embarrassing to the government and blah blah blah.
It's different, but just as special.
It says how the latest leaked documents are different from the past breaches. The freshness of the document, the freshness. Like, these are fresh. Wow, this is really
right out of the oven.
Wow, these are fresh. Got a nice crust.
Time to make the documents.
Some appear to be barely 40 days old, and the hints they hold for operations to come make them particularly damaging, officials say. So when I saw this story, it seemed sketchy to me. I didn't think.
Why? Is it because you didn't? I didn't really get anything from it.
Yeah, like they just because my friend Tom Simmons texted me, goes, the leaked documents say everything Jimmy Dore's been saying for the last 8 months, right?
Right.
And I go, yeah, probably longer. So that's why this isn't. So why is this supposed to be a big deal? It's not a big deal. This is the CIA doing this. This is my theory. So here, this is from the article. It says, when WikiLeaks spilled a huge trove of state. So this is the first paragraph in this article written by this guy, David E. Sanger. Now, if you know anything about David E. Sanger, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner because he gets his stories directly from the CIA. Okay, so that's why he gets to write
He
stories.
won a prize for listening.
For listening to the CIA. So this story I'm gonna guess is how a CIA informant or a CIA man would write this story. And he starts off his story about these leaked documents by saying this about WikiLeaks. He says, when WikiLeaks spilled a huge trove of State Department cables 13 years ago, it gave the world a sense of what American diplomats do each day.
What?
The sharp elbows, the doubts, the doubts about wavering allies, and the glimpses at how Washington was preparing for North Korea's eventual collapse and Iran's nuclear blackout. Oh, yes, that's what it revealed. It revealed diplomacy. I believe it's from the ancient Greek word diplomacy that means sharpened elbows. So that's why Julian Assange is being slowly murdered. He carelessly exposed these sharp elbows of democracy. So do you see what they're doing? See, he's trying to pretend that the WikiLeaks were a nothing burger and that they just revealed what people. Well,
it was a huge trove of nothing.
Huge trove. So Glenn Greenwald caught this, and he'll explain it to you better.
It is unbelievable to describe the WikiLeaks disclosures that way. He's doing it on purpose to make it seem like it was a completely unjustified and banal leak that didn't really tell you anything about the world other than giving you a, quote, sense of what American diplomats do. This is just the business of diplomats. They throw sharp elbows. They have some doubts about wavering allies. And you got some glimpses about how Washington was preparing for North Korea's eventual collapse and Iran's nuclear breakout.
Neither of those things
So they
happened.
pick the things that they know you're fine with the State Department doing in order to make this leak sound like it was something that told you nothing important, but at the same time was incredibly dangerous. Now, this eventual collapse of North Korea, I don't think we have that yet. This is 13 years later. So there's no collapse of North Korea. Maybe eventually means 100 years from now. And Iran has not broken out in the sense that it has nuclear weapons. Nobody claims that. But these are things that you would want the government to be doing, and that's why the New York Times purposely described the WikiLeaks releases in this way, to make you think these WikiLeaks releases told you nothing but endangered the public. In reality, the exact opposite was true. They revealed all kinds of secrets about tens of thousands of people, innocent civilians that the United States government, the military had killed in Afghanistan and Iraq. They had revealed a video showing the U.S. government, the U.S. military gunning down innocent people, including journalists who worked for Reuters when they were on the ground and scrambling to try and leave. They revealed widespread and rampant corruption among all kinds of U.S. allies in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and Jordan and Egypt, and all kinds of lies about a whole range of issues that the U.S. government told the public. But it's bizarre, although not really, that David Sanger, who's an ally of this intelligence services, would start off his article trying to demean WikiLeaks' releases, knowing Julian Assange is in prison. This is the way that a CIA agent who hates Julian Assange would describe those releases, not the way a journalist would. So already you know that he's surveying here an agenda that is the U.S. security state's agenda. That's what he always does, but this is the first clue. Now here's...
So, okay, so your first paragraph, okay, there's something nefarious happening here. Everyone's pretending like this is a big leak, and in order to do that, they get this hack from the New York Times, who's a CIA puppet, to downplay what so here's the second paragraph. When Edward Snowden swept up the National Security Agency's secrets 3 years later, Americans suddenly discovered the scope of how the digital age had ushered in a remarkable new era of surveillance by the agency, enabling it to pierce China's telecommunications industry and to drill into Google's servers overseas to pick up foreign communications.
Also, your communications. Also, all of them.
That's right. So that's the part that hack from the CIA tool of the New York Times leaves out. The actual shit that Edward Snowden revealed is that they were doing illegal spying on Americans. But
I'm glad they had time to do that other spying with all the spying on Americans.
That's right. And why shouldn't we spy on our allies? Right? Why should we spy on our own citizens? You want to roll with America, we get to watch you fuck. That's how it goes. That's the price of freedom. Glenn Greenwald, also, who was very instrumental in the Edward Snowden story, he caught this, and here's what he says about it.
The crux of the Snowden reporting showed how the NSA was spying on the conversations of American citizens, the telephone activities of Americans, to the point that courts were able to rule them unconstitutional, as I said earlier. But again, if you work for the NSA, this is what you would want people to think the Snowden reporting was about. He's counting on the fact that it's been 10 years and people don't remember. So he's just rewriting history. And I will show you that the only people who ever revealed any secrets about how the NSA spies on China is the New York Times itself, not any of the other journalists who actually worked with Edward Snowden. So we'll get to that in a minute. Now, they go on.
So then here's the next paragraph. I think this is the next paragraph. No, maybe it's not. But those were the first two paragraphs of his articles. So you know something's nefarious afoot. Mm-hmm. So then it says, the cache of 100 or so newly leaked briefing slides of operational data on the war in Ukraine is distinctly different, he says. The data revealed so far is less comprehensive than those vast secret archives, but far more timely. What? And it is the immediate...
Meaning it's like more of some of the other revelations were from already expired events, but this was revealing current plans. I think that's what he means. Anyway, you guys kind of get the point on this one. Let's go ahead and move on from that. But let's see. So, and of course, Glenn Greenwald is a good source for some of this take because he was directly involved with Snowden. If you guys recall, he was the journalist one of the journalists that Snowden went to break that. So whatever was going on with that as well, I think it's a little bit more complicated than what's on the surface. But anyway, let's see. Let's take about 30 seconds here to get things set up, and we're gonna keep pushing on. I got some more stuff I want to show you guys. Very much appreciated over there. Thank you to Omazon over there with the can on the Foxhole Pill chat with the message here. There are no nuclear secrets, or are there? Yeah, we were talking about that last night. You guys could check out Omazon over there and Shananon as well. I was going back and forth with them on that particular topic and others. Let's see. Thank you to Joe Rambo with the can. Much appreciated with the message catching you late, but cheers. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Joe Rambo. You guys can check out Brainstorm over there on the Foxhole as well. Okay. What do we got? It's too soon to go back to Nicole Wallace, even though we're going to have to. But I want to definitely get into this... these threats, apparently. I don't know. I'm not really buying it. I don't think it's really that organic because I think most people understand, especially on the Trump side, that this is all bullshit. So I don't get why there would be just threats. I just don't get it.
And a new threat that came in just moments ago to our newsroom. We're back in 60 seconds.
It's stuff like that. A new threat that just came into our newsroom. Okay, this is propaganda.
Breaking news late in the day out of New York tonight. NYPD responding to what they've discovered, an envelope that contained white powder that was sent to the New York DA's office, which is conducting the prosecution of Donald Trump. It was
I don't buy this shit for a goddamn second. I don't.
Addressed to DA Bragg, NBC News, reporting this substance, we mentioned this as we were getting the information at the top of the hour, the substance has been deemed non-hazardous. The letter inside, insulting, and there are many threats that the DA has been.
Let me guess, it was a racist attack too.
And publicizing, we will get into that and why and how that fits into law. This is the DA who indicted Donald Trump. And while these threats are real and proliferate,
oh, thank you for letting me know that they're not real. So you're telling me it's absolutely 100% real, coming from MSNBC. Okay, sure. Timberjet over there on the Foxhole says that with the can, much appreciated, says that the biggest nuclear secret is that we don't know if ours still work after 50 years. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I assume there would be some sort of diagnostic test, but interesting point. Thank you to Timberjet.
there is a lot of evidence that not only is he not backing down, but as we've been reporting, he is using a different legal strategy than past prosecutors like Bob Mueller, who have faced this very unruly, now defendant, Donald Trump.
I'm sorry, Bob Mueller was he was a special prosecutor, so fine. Special counsel, but...
DA, in some ways, within the law, is going after Trump with an awareness of Trump's tactics. For example, he had an untraditional arraignment that we went through. For example, yesterday, he did something that we've almost never seen. He went and took a Trump ally in Congress, Chairman Jordan, to court to try to get the jump on, or legally the first move, against this subpoena fight. And putting on record those threats that I mentioned, which are, of course, newly relevant tonight, as well as arguing to a judge that what Jordan is asking for is not a lawful subpoena, but instead an unconstitutional attack. Bragg asked the court to end what he calls a constitutionally destructive fishing expedition and requests that the judge step in now, again, learning past lessons about months of these kind of fights, and saying that subpoenas pursued in this fashion of Bragg or current or former staff should be automatically declared, he says, a declaratory judgment of those subpoenas as invalid. The same filing, which we reported on when the news first broke yesterday, also has a whole section on Trump's ongoing attacks, his public use of his voice, of his interviews, of internet appearances, of internet posts on his platform and others to try to incite, according to the DA, violence against the court system. Now, there's a lot of evidence that threats don't work directly on prosecutors, but I can tell you that pressure and being on reaction and feeling like you have to wait on what Trump or Jim Jordan's going to do, that's certainly got in the mind of other prosecutors. We even saw an entire Mueller probe that at times seemed, in its care and in its careful approach, weeks, if not months, behind the actual public news cycle, which informs people's realities.
Holy shit. He said it. That is the most one-to-one direct thing that you're ever going to hear from fake news. Holy shit. He just literally admitted what they're doing, what they do.
Seemed, in its care and in its careful approach, weeks, if not months, behind the actual public news cycle, which informs people's realities.
Holy shit. Holy shit. Wow. Oh, my. Oh, what do you say to that? That is... Oh, wow. Quiet part out loud times 1,000. Holy shit. Apparently, we do have some actual breaking news there. Merrick Garland has decided to come out of his shell, wherever that is, with Mitch McConnell, and make a speech about something. So let's see what this is about.
I'm joined today by Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco and FBI Director Paul Bate. Today, the Justice Department arrested Jack Douglas Teixeira in connection with an investigation into alleged unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information. Teixeira is an employee of the United States Air Force National Guard. FBI agents took Teixeira into custody earlier this afternoon without incident. He will have an initial appearance at the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts. I want to thank the FBI, Justice Department prosecutors, and our colleagues at the Department of Defense for their diligent work on this case. This investigation is ongoing. We will share more information at the appropriate time.
So here's what you have: an actual classified information breach, not the fake one that they say Trump is doing. So maybe now that they see the difference, maybe they'll actually understand what the fuck they're doing over there is political. Yeah, but we'll see. I don't want to give them too much credit. Holy shit. Let's go back to this and hear this one more time.
Certainly got in the mind of other prosecutors. We even saw an entire Mueller probe that at times seemed, in its care and in its careful approach, weeks, if not months, behind the actual public news cycle, which informs people's realities.
So they're saying that the
in the mind of other prosecutors. I can tell you.
Okay, so the things that Trump was saying during the Mueller probe was influencing the people behind the scenes dealing with the Mueller probe, such that they were weeks and months behind what Ari is saying they were pushing within the news cycle. Am I hearing that right?
That pressure and being on reaction and feeling like you have to wait on what Trump or Jim Jordan's going to do, that's certainly got in the mind of other prosecutors. We even saw an entire Mueller probe that at times seemed, in its care and in its careful approach, weeks, if not months, behind the actual public news cycle, which informs people's realities, dealing with Donald Trump as the person under investigation. So all of that, including the new threat to DA Bragg, brings us to our report on this case tonight. And we have very special guests. I mentioned Michael Steele is back, looking at the wider climate and the politics. And joining me tonight as well is the former U.S. Attorney in charge of the famed SDNY in New York, David Kelly. I should note he's also my former boss. And I should also note, as we look at Washington, that as a litigator, Mr. Kelly has been called on to represent, among others, James Comey, someone who had a lot of law enforcement background, was a registered Republican, but found himself, like DA Bragg, David, sparring with people like Jim Jordan, who, I want to be clear, has every right to oversee the DOJ and to work as a Judiciary Committee chair in the federal realm, but who under traditional law, David, doesn't have jurisdictional oversight of local prosecutors under federalism. So given your extensive experience, we'll get to those threats, but first, what do you think of this approach that DA Bragg is taking in trying to protect the independence of his probe from Washington?
I like the approach, and it's a smart approach. And look, the issue is that Congress is granted broad discretion. They have to, in these situations where you try to quash a subpoena or enjoin a subpoena, as they're trying to do here, you have to overcome the broad discretion given to Congress for a legislative purpose. And what they have really done in a very smart way in this lawsuit, Ted Boutros and Mylon Dennerstein and others have painted this whole story out, which makes it clear that this has nothing to do with the legislative purpose. So as difficult it is to overcome, and
So they said a thing, and that's it, but you didn't say what their specific argument was.
had trouble, as you mentioned, I've litigated this issue, and it's a very difficult hill to overcome, the legislative purpose. But I have to say, of all the cases we've seen challenging the legislative purpose, I think this hill is surmountable. And because of the story that's painted here, so I give them a fighting chance. I don't say they're going to win, but I give them a fighting chance. And I also have to say that Jim Jordan, in I guess an informal response, at least one reported by, among others, Fox News, he's saying that because Congress, Bragg gets federal funds, they have a right to look into this. I just think that makes Bragg's theory even stronger. And
hey, that whole legitimate thing, that the fact that he's using federal funds and Congress has an oversight and essentially over the purse strings of federal funds, that whole thing that actually gives every single bit of this legitimacy, we're just going to go ahead and ignore that and say that, no, that's not a thing. That can't be a thing because that ruins our argument and our propaganda. Of course. Let's see. Where are we at? We got that. Did we cover this one? No, yeah, we were returning to this one. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to go back to Deadline in the land of vocal fry. And this will probably take us to the end here. All right. Here we go.
You hear the disgrace, twice impeached, now indicted ex-president praise on Fox News, no less, some of the world's worst authoritarians. It might be understandable why so many in his party have fallen in love with authoritarian tools and mechanisms. After all, it's easier to banish your political opponents and silence the press when your leader is gushing about dictators. That conversation and what Trump said on Fox after a quick break. Later in the hour, domestic blowback over those leaked intelligence documents. A top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee on why those opposed to helping Ukraine prevail over Russia should not be using those documents to argue that the war is not worth supporting. Deadline White House continues after a quick break. Don't go anywhere. In life and in politics, you can tell a lot about a person by the company they keep.
Yeah. And who are you about to bring on? Let's see. You're about to bring on. Yeah. Was this Ben Rhodes? Yeah.
Or in the case of the twice impeached, disgraced, now indicted ex-president, the people they praise loudly on Fox News. For years, Donald Trump has lauded enthusiastically authoritarian rulers across the globe. And last night on Fox, he did it again.
They're all top of the line. Our guy's not top of the line. Never was. These are top of the line people at the top of their game. President Xi is a brilliant man. If you went all over Hollywood to look for somebody to play the role of President Xi, you couldn't find it. There's nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. We had a great relationship. How smart is Kim Jong-un? Top of the line. You know, people say, oh, this and that. Really smart. Putin, very smart.
I don't even know where to start. No one called you top of the line, ever. Our friend Charlie Sykes wrote this. War crimes, genocide, murders, not something that the GOP frontrunner seems to care about, but we knew that, didn't we? We don't typically amplify any of Trump's wild rides.
Yeah, your entire existence is about exploiting anything that Trump says and twisting it. That's your entirety of your entire paycheck. It involves Trump.
Or anything, frankly, that's on Fox News. But in covering the Tennessee Republicans, in covering the restrictive bans on abortion, in covering the 400-plus voter suppression laws, it's important to understand they're not bodily functions. They're not burping out random policies. They're following their leader, who's following the world's most heinous authoritarians. And we showed you that to show you just how dangerous his rhetoric is as applied from the top to the bottom at the national, state, and local level of the Republican Party in America.
There you go, guys. Because Trump said that the people that are most that are our largest adversaries, our adversaries. If you want to get into the Red October adversaries, or no, that was something different. Anyway, so he says that these people are smart and they're sharp, and we need to watch them. Somehow that translates to now you don't have abortion pills. Okay.
America. It's that message and that firm embrace. No dog whistles. Top of the line. These people are top of the line. They're at the top of their game. Literally no one in Hollywood is good enough to play them in the movie. What movie?
The movie of life.
That is the message the party's getting from their leader. We know how indebted they are to him. It's no surprise the members are moving away from democratic norms.
Oh my gosh, guys, the norms. You got to watch out for those norms.
Not just American democratic norms, but the world's democracies have a set of norms.
You can't get away from the norms. Come on, it's the norms. Come on. We can't get away from fixing problems because that would be abnormal.
Republicans are not so into them anymore. They're now engaging in authoritarian practices like enacting inhumane abortion bans.
Yeah. Banning abortion is inhumane.
Expelling political opponents from serving in state legislatures.
They were also reinstated.
And targeting reporters.
Targeting reporters for what? Criticism?
Our coverage, former Obama Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, plus former Republican Congressman David Jolly. Ketty Kay is here, U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC Studios. They're all MSNBC contributors. I'll say this to you, David Jolly. He's such an idiot on top of all else. I mean, he sounds like such a bleeping idiot.
Incredible arguments.
Yeah, listen, it's somewhat easy to absorb his ignorance now, 6 to 7 years in, and question his intent, right? Because here's the thing, it's actually very dangerous what he just did, you know.
It's dangerous. What he did is dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Whatever fuck your name is, Jolly.
He's been normalized, but understand even his comments about President Xi Jinping of China, right now in the world, in the region, China has just finished a very aggressive exercise where they surrounded Taiwan. The U.S. is on the eve of an escalated exercise in response, much larger than past years. This is a critical geopolitical national security region.
No shit. And this is what he's saying. He's saying that Xi is very smart, and we need to be smart in response. We can't just make it dismissive that this person is just like, inherit his position, as even when he said that Kim Jong-un inherited his position. But he said that even though he did inherit his position in North Korea, he still was able to do what he was doing. Do we disagree with what he's doing? I guess yes, we do, because that's literally a dictatorship. But but understanding that these people are smart is just a description of our enemy, of our adversaries, right? It's not saying that we're just completely dismissing him and kissing their feet. That's not what this is about. It's about understanding the actual severity and the level of intellect within our adversary.
And so when Donald Trump, as a former president, says our current guy, Joe Biden, doesn't know what he's doing, and the president of China really does, that actually has significant reverberations.
Well, is that true or not? Because I would have to imagine that Joe Biden doesn't have a fucking clue.
Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense.
And that's not because of what Trump said. All they have to do is turn on the fucking TV, or anytime he may show up, it's like fucking Groundhog's Day. Every time, what I mean to say is it's only once a year you really get a genuine appearance from Biden. When's the last press conference he had?
Recently called what's happening in the region a really big deal. And so in the past, former presidents would have kept their mouth shut or would have backed up the sitting president. We now live in a world in which Donald Trump goes into these interviews, and whether it's ignorance or intent, leaves a very dangerous message on the world stage. And
what about it is dangerous? You have not yet to say this. It's a bunch of word salad. You have yet to say why it's dangerous.
And we have to continue to call it out when we hear it.
Okay. Call what out? He said some things that said that we need to pay attention to what's going on with our adversaries. Okay, how is that dangerous?
We have to continue to reckon with the fact that as a country and as a democracy, Ben Rhodes,
constitutional republic,
we have not held Trump accountable
for what?
Brazen crimes against our democracy.
That's not a real thing, bitch.
And there are some who are uncomfortable with our constant focus on Merrick Garland's Justice Department. But the truth is, when your political parties crumble, when they're corrupted from the top to the bottom,
like both political parties,
when they call an insurrection a normal tourist visit, when Mitch McConnell gets up at the end of a trial in which he acquits Donald Trump and says, well, there's always the criminal justice system. He can be held to account there. Fairly or not, it all falls to the rule of law to hold the democracy together. How are we doing on that front?
Well, I mean, incomplete, Nicole. And look, I literally watching those clips. I mean, I wrote a whole book about.
It's actually a nice telescope over there in the background. That's one of the ones that has the tracking. That's a nice telescope. That's like a good 5-inch deal. That's like a good $2-3 grand.
About this subject of Trump and the Republican Party and commonality with these other leaders. But the reason it's important is, in addition to just expressing this admiration, Trump and really the Republican Party that has implemented some of these changes, they've copied the playbook of people like Viktor Orban, people like Vladimir Putin himself, in terms of rolling back democratic protections, treating the rule of law as something that you can like a menu where you choose it when you want it, you use it when you want it, and you discard it when you don't want it. And what has been proven time and again is if you don't stop that kind of power grab, there's no reason to think that the autocratic party will stop itself. Like there's just not any precedent. If you look around the world at all these systems that have moved in a more autocratic direction, it's not like at a certain point, the parties that have made a conscious decision to go down this path of undoing democratic norms.
Oh, there's the norms again. All right, we're going to skip this dipshit and go over to Catty K, which usually she says the quiet parts out loud.
Now, that seal has been broken. They have any more time. Republicans are, Catty, I would go even further on the autocratic point. I think there's this sense that we have time. We don't have any more time. Republicans are wrapped in
we're out of time.
Orban's, you know what. CPAC has been held there for years now. That seal has been broken. They have shown us who they are. And the people who want to continue to live in a democracy, I think, feel like there are other fights. They're all the same fight. The other side has wrapped all of their efforts to strip away rights, to disenfranchise the voters of Tennessee by expelling their members, to make sure that anyone and everyone who wants a gun can get a gun and no one can ever have access to health care if they're a woman. I mean, it is all part of a piece on their side, in their telling. And I worry sometimes that people think, oh, democracy, we'll deal with that later. We have to fight for this first. Do you feel like the fight is a fair one in our country?
I just came back from a few weeks in Europe, and it was really noticeable the degree to which Europeans are looking at what's happening inside American politics and having kind of thought that the country would change after Donald Trump left office. They've been really struck by how little it has and how much the rollback of rights around reproductive rights, for example, or the disconnect between the organs of American government and the will of the American people on things like guns or things like abortion seem to be incapable of addressing America's problems. So there seems to be a systemic problem with American democracy, whoever is sitting in the White House. And that's the kind of thing I think that alarms those Europeans, particularly those who have long looked to America.
Has she said anything yet? I have yet. This is all gish gallop. I have word salad. I have yet to hear her actually make it. Like, is she speaking words? This is English, right?
For leadership, and of course, America has led on Ukraine, and Europeans are incredibly grateful for that, and they acknowledge that. But there is something about America's inability to deal with problems that the American.
She's doing a really good job on that mustache, by the way.
Public tell pollsters they want.
Give it a week, honey.
Dealing with that is alarming whoever wins the next election, because the country doesn't seem to be able to deal with those problems.
Yeah, and I mean, I think our politics still get pushed through a business as usual sieve, David Jolly. The truth is, if it's a rematch of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, only one of them is going to work to make sure that everybody still lives in a democracy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it won't be Joe Biden.
Only one of them is interested in making sure that every Republican and every Democrat in this country has access to government, support of public services. The other one is for burning it all down. And I feel like we're still a little proud.
Yeah. Open borders. Yeah, that's burning it down. So yeah, they want to say it's Trump's going to do something. No. You guys know where the call is coming from inside the house, and that call is whatever the deep state calls itself within our own country at the moment. All right, one last thing, I guess, is a send off here. Apparently, this is another Freedom Tunes. This is entitled "Every Dating Podcast." So this is a parody on any dating podcast. So we'll play this out, and then we'll call it quits for today, and then we'll resume normal programming tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. So anyway, we'll play this, do this. We'll call out the remainder of the chats that are there. So, and then we'll call it a day. So here we go. Let's see. Like I said, this is Freedom Tunes called entitled "Every Dating Podcast."
I'll only date a guy if he makes 6 figures. No, 7 figures. Because of inflation. Yeah, because of inflammation. Yeah, and he has to be over 6 feet tall. No, 7 feet tall. Because of inflation. Yeah. And he needs to be okay with me having an OnlyFans. 2 OnlyFans. Yeah. Because of inflation.
This stupid. This stupid.
I am not.
This stupid. This is stupid. I am smarter than the hot 18-year-old. We're smart, she's stupid.
I spent my most valuable years allowing my body to be used because no one ever taught me what love is or how to respect myself. And all you can do is make fun of me for it. This bitch.
You stupid. This stupid. 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 The stupidest of the. This stupid is so stupid.
This stupid.
This stupid. This stupid. So stupid.
Leave her alone. I'm over 7 feet tall. I make 7 figures, and I do want her.
Do you have a 7-pack?
This stupid.
Oh. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh. Oh. Excellent. Oh man, what a way to end. Oh. Anyway, guys, have a great rest of your evening, afternoon, and we'll catch you on the next one. Let's see. Make sure I catch up here. Thank you to Woke and Walk with the Cam with the message. Happy Thursday, Pinata and Foxhole fam. Working and lurking. Clown chicanery abounds. Thank you so much, Woke and Walk. Thank you also to Karen Harris 7 with a cookie. Much appreciated over there. And just to recap, we had Timberjet, Omazon, Joe Rambo, Ginger45, Mountain Dog Boy, Cozy Bear, Zoe, Filter Dog 1, Doug Is My, Gatorman, Radon Antifa, Richard Lyles, and PNW Sasquatch over there, contributing to the gold pills over there in Foxhole. Very much appreciated. Let me check Rumble. No Rumble rants. Let's see. I appreciate you guys viewing over there. A little bit of an extended show today, just because I wanted to get through what we got through. We'll have to see how they continue to ignore this development with the special access requests through the Biden administration. So it seems as though their counter to that was saying that Trump had a declassified map and he showed it to people. Oh, all right. Was he allowed to have it? Yeah, he was allowed to have it. So anyway, not much of a counter, but that was their counter. And so, of course, I think we had some good laughs today. I know I had some fun. Appreciate the viewership. Like I said, please consider hitting the positive doodad mentions or whatever on the various platforms and sharing out the links. Actually, if you share out the Twitter link that I post before the shows, if you share out the truth link, we do see growth if you guys are doing that. So I know that even so, very appreciate if you guys do that. That'd be nice. Okay. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone. Evening, like I said, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone. Let's see. Thank you to Woke and Walked with the cookie with the message. Thanks for humor. This will make me laugh every time I cite the KISS method. And that's keep it simple, stupid method. Much appreciated. Thank you, Woke and Walked. Releasing the scratching. I think I just did it. There we go. Bye, everyone.